окупанти до нас в Україну. Форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар. Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 742 of the news. And Zelensky's out here dodging missiles and also dodging Russians, and it's good to see you all once again.
And we can see that, of course, like Matthew said, Zelensky is dodging Russians, and the Russians are dodging Ukrainian drones. And it's time for us to get into the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. It has been a wildly eventful day today, with President Volodymyr Zelensky almost being killed, actually, today by a Russian Iskander-M missile, and not only that, massive defeats being seen of the Russian armed forces on the battlefields of Ukraine, as the Ukrainians have been able to secure their defensive positions again on all battlefields and inflict incredibly high casualties onto attacking Russian forces. Not only that, we also got additional video footage that has never before been seen until today, showing the destruction of the Sergey Kotov and the Caesar Kunikov earlier on back in February. We're going to be going over all of this tonight, and also the ongoing situation inside of Moldova, and for a brief moment, we'll also be talking about the deaths of 3 sailors in the southern Red Sea due to Yemeni Houthi attacks. We've got a lot to cover, and we're going to be starting off tonight with the near death of President Volodymyr Zelensky, but fortunately enough, it did not happen. The Russians once again failed at an attempt to try and assassinate President Zelensky, and we got to hear today that an Iskander-M hit 200 meters away from President Zelensky. To put that into perspective, that Iskander missile landed almost, for our American viewers, 2 football fields away from President Zelensky and where he was, along with the Greek Prime Minister, inside of the city of Odessa. At the moment of the reporting of this news, 5 Ukrainian civilians have been reported as dead from this Iskander attack. Many others have also been reported wounded and killed after the fact, after this news was published a little bit earlier today. But nevertheless, the implication of President Zelensky coming under an Iskander-M attack and nearly being killed is something quite serious. This is, in fact, the closest that we know publicly that President Zelensky has been to the jaws of death over the course of the entire war of Ukraine. And the fact that it was an Iskander also adds a lot more fear to what happened today, because an Iskander's shrapnel radius is nearly 200 meters in every direction, or more so, I believe, yeah, that would actually be a radius instead of a circumference or anything like that. But beyond that, this is a very serious event that we saw today. And we got to see that Zelensky actually came out not long after the missile attack had occurred and ended up killing a large amount of Ukrainian civilians and nearly getting the president of Ukraine himself. He actually came out alongside the Greek Prime Minister and made some very quick statements about the attacks, and also showed some very deep concern for those who have been wounded, and of course grief for those who had been killed once again by another Russian terroristic attack that could have had even larger implications to the European Union and NATO as a whole if it had turned out differently. But here is the exact statement made by President Zelensky only a mere hours after the attack had actually occurred.
Це відповідний удар. Ви бачите, з ким ми маємо справу, і все одно.
Also, really quickly, the audio is so quiet even on my end, I'm going to make sure to read off the subtitles and also play the clip in the background. So, we're going to start that over. We saw this strike today. You see who we're dealing with. They, the Russians, do not care where they strike. I know there were casualties today. I don't know all the details yet, but I know there were casualties, dead and wounded. Please accept my condolences. But you see that they don't care if these are military, civilian, or international guests. Whoever it is, these people don't care. They've either lost their minds or they're completely out of control of what their terroristic army is doing. That's what we're seeing. It shows that we need, first and foremost, to defend ourselves. The best way to do that is air defense systems. We understand what needs to be done. Our partners have the whole plan. We're gradually growing stronger. Not as fast as we would like, but unfortunately, it is what it is. But it's a fact that we are growing stronger on a daily basis. and that was the small statement that was made by President Zelensky earlier today about the missile attack that took the lives of 5 Ukrainian civilians and almost took the life of President Zelensky himself. Many people have been...
That is pretty bold, though, for Russia to strike the area with the Greek prime minister right there, because that's one of the first times they've actually tried to target that close to a foreign ambassador of any sort while they're inside of Ukraine, because the only thing closest to it was when they sent that drone to surveil the German foreign minister when they were driving through Ukraine to another part of the war zone. But even then, they didn't try to attack the person. They just simply surveilled it. But this was a actual attack within a block or so of these men.
It was wildly close, and something that does have massive implications. And a lot of people actually have been talking about whether this was just the weirdest of coincidences that the missile ended up making it through Odessa's air defense and slamming into the city, or whether this was actually a deliberate attack against Zelensky and his life, and maybe even the Prime Minister of Greece's life as well. A lot of people have been talking about this today, and it looks like most people that we've seen speaking about this particular incident are on pretty much the exact same page about what really happened and what is going to be occurring as a result of this attempt. But nevertheless, Matthew, I know that a lot of people in our chat have shown a massive amount of outrage at what happened today, and it looks like a lot of people are saying almost the exact same thing about what happened.
So yes, on the question of of Russia firing an Iskander missile less than 150 yards from Zelensky's convoy in Odessa, 69% said it was an assassination attempt. 17% said it was a random attack on Odessa, and 9% said they need more info first. And for that to be in such close proximity to those guys, Zelensky and also the Greek Prime Minister, I would have to lean toward it was an assassination attempt. Because even though the Russians are incompetent, they do have intelligence, and they knew that those guys were heading to that area, and they should have known better than to target that area if they were really trying not to assassinate either one of those guys. So I have to believe it's intentional, and there's really nothing to suggest that it was an accident. The Russians haven't made a statement about it, and, I think they were trying to take them out, and they might have missed. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that this certainly seems, in my opinion, to be an assassination attempt on President Zelensky. And I believe, based off of information that we have about the exact specifications and abilities of the Iskander-M, that this was an attack that was blindly conducted with hopes that President Zelensky would be within the area of the Iskander. Now, of course, throughout the course of the war, many people have seen that a large amount of Russian cruise and ballistic missiles have ended up hitting and what appears to be almost deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure inside of Ukraine. For example, apartment buildings, and hitting at the very base of them to try and inflict as high an amount of civilian casualties as physically possible. And from what we understand, the Iskander-M, the modernized version of the Iskander system, is capable of an accuracy, even at its farthest range, of around 5 to 7 meters from its actual pinpointed target. That's at least on paper. Of course, Russian weapons can end up having a lot of things that go wrong that will lead to their accuracy being greatly diminished beyond that 5 to 7 meter accuracy area. But beyond that, however, it is showing that within practical reason, because the Iskander-M has been around for quite a while, it's been in service since around 2006, we know for certain that this missile was blindly targeted for the most part into the general direction that Zelensky was at. Another interesting thing about the Iskander-M is that it is a huge explosive, at least a huge warhead that is attached to an Iskander. The warhead that is on an Iskander, just a high explosive variant, can run anywhere in between being 1,060 pounds to nearly 1,540 pounds of pure high explosive. Probably one of the largest explosive yields that can be carried over such a great distance by a Russian missile. Going off of these two things, the yield of the explosive in an Iskander-M, as well as the overall accuracy of the Iskander and how close it came to actually being almost directly on top of Zelensky and the Prime Minister of Greece, I would have to assume that this was most likely an attempt to assassinate both the Prime Minister of Greece as well as President Zelensky while they were inside of Odessa. However, it does appear that while the Russians, in my opinion, did attempt to assassinate Zelensky, they were working with semi-complete information and details surrounding where Zelensky was and what he was doing, as while the attack was within 200 meters, it wasn't directly on Zelensky, showing that while they knew he was going to be in that general area, they didn't know exactly where, so they guesstimated it and hoped that the Iskander would end up exploding close enough to Zelensky and the Greek Prime Minister that it would end up wounding and killing, or end up killing both of them. Going off of that, I would have to say, with all of the facts in front of us, and, using some decent amount of logical inference, that this was certainly an assassination attempt that was tried on President Zelensky. But more so, what's even crazier about this attack, whether it was deliberate or not, although it seems like almost everyone is in agreement, or in concord, that it certainly was an assassination attack, many people have been talking about the raw implication of what would have happened if that Iskander M had landed directly on top of the heads of Zelensky and the Greek Prime Minister. Pushing Zelensky aside for a minute, because everyone knows how important he is to the Ukrainian war and the Ukrainian cause, the Greek Prime Minister is a representative, one of the top representatives, of the nation of Greece, which is a member of the European Union, and most importantly, a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, also known as NATO. The fact that the Greek Prime Minister was under direct threat of death, and that it was highly possible that he could have been killed, has been bringing about a serious discussion on what this should mean, even though that he did live, and from what we know, he wasn't even wounded. The fact that this appears to be an assassination attempt, and that the Greek Prime Minister was apparently a target in this assassination attempt, has brought in a massive discussion about what a Western response would be if the Greek Prime Minister had died, or what a Western response will look like right now, considering that the Greek Prime Minister was even part of the target of a Russian attack. A lot of people have been saying that maybe there would be a NATO response to this. A lot of people are saying that Greece is a completely unimportant country. No one cares about Greece, so what matters if a prime minister dies in Greece? And I'm just saying that that's not my statements. If anyone's about to get pissed off about that, I'm saying that I've been seeing that out there in the world today when people have been talking about it. And loads of people have been speaking about the hypothetical scenario of the Greek Prime Minister getting killed, and what would have really happened if that had been the case. Moving Zelensky aside, forget Zelensky dying, because he would have also died in that attack as well. Just speaking about the Greek Prime Minister and his connections to a nation that has been within NATO, I believe, since 1954, what kind of implications would that have? What kind of implications did it have in general for the Greek Prime Minister to even be under attack at all? And a lot of people, loads of people, are appearing to be on the same page as well about that kind of an idea and what would have happened as a response. And Matthew, what do we have? Like, what are people even saying about that kind of a hypothetical scenario?
So it looks like 57% of the audience believes that if the Greek Prime Minister was killed by that Russian missile attack today, that there would be a NATO response. 20% said there would be no military response whatsoever, and 14% said only Greece would respond to it. And on this one, I got to say, it's a little bit difficult to say because, some things that I would have thought that NATO would have responded to in the past, they sort of just turned a blind eye to it, because I think NATO is very apt to avoid war at pretty much all costs at the moment, and I really don't see this actually causing a war, to believe it or not. I would have to say that there would likely be only a Greek response to it, and even at that, Greece's not exactly a powerhouse, so I'm not really sure what they would do either. But I'm not sure if NATO would go to war over it, because I think they would chalk it up to, well, the Greek Prime Minister was in a war zone, and they might have been fair game. Even though it'd be certainly a tragedy, I'm not sure if we'd go to war over it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I believe that there would have certainly been a NATO response if the Greek Prime Minister had ended up being killed in that attack. Some people are trying to make an argument that Greece is more of an unimportant country, and the fact that one of their leaders would have been killed probably wouldn't have ruffled too many feathers within NATO. But it's not necessarily the importance or weight of the nation that is behind a leader of a country inside of NATO. It's more so the fact that NATO and its leaders are all equally important according to the alliance, and one leader being attacked opens up the idea that really any leader in NATO could be attacked and may be given no security guarantees or even enough weight to have a response made by NATO if they were killed. I don't really think that because they're in a war zone in Ukraine that it diminishes the importance and security that NATO puts and the Western world puts on these leaders as they're inside of Ukraine. And I would have to say that if the if the Greek prime minister had died, NATO would most likely respond to that promptly, probably immediately. And I'd also have to say that if he was to live, which he did very fortunately, there's probably still going to be some kind of a NATO response at that, because the fact that they're trying to target a Greek prime minister or a leader of a nation in NATO at all is something quite serious. And I think that this will really start to move a lot of European countries down a much more martial mindset and a martial path than we've seen even in the past. Most likely pushing the French even further into talking about sending Western troops into Ukraine to, of course, repair the trucks. But we know that that wouldn't be what Western forces are doing in Ukraine, because that'd be a little silly that they're repairing trucks. But beyond that, I hope that does address that well, in my opinion, because we do know.
You know what really gives you a good guide point to figure out what NATO would do. For example, when the Russians sent that surveillance drone after the German foreign minister while she was driving through Ukraine, I don't even think NATO made a statement about that whatsoever. They pretended like that didn't even happen. And even though nothing happened physically to the foreign minister, she was nonetheless basically being chased down by the Russians, and they could have attacked if they wanted to. And NATO never said anything like, Russia should leave alone like foreign ministers when they go to visit Ukraine. They didn't say a word. I think NATO is not really willing to step in at all. If you go into Ukraine as a leader of a Western country, you're pretty much on your own. You're stepping into no man's land with the way NATO is going to handle it.
Maybe so. That might be the way NATO looks at it, but I would have to have some faith that NATO would have a bit more of a spine than to allow our leaders to get killed just because they're in Ukraine and it's a war zone. Because these are the leaders of nations, after all, and whether people like them or not, or agree with their political opinions or disagree with them, these people are the representatives of entire nations, of millions, tens of millions, and in America's instance, hundreds of millions of people. And the fact that one of these leaders visiting Ukraine can end up getting killed, and people are saying nothing may happen as a response to that, is pretty crazy to me. And I think that even on a NATO level, on a realistic level, that would be absolutely insane to not respond in any actual way to a representative of NATO or a leader of a NATO country being killed, and absolutely no response coming out of that instant. That would be crazy to me. But nevertheless, we don't really know what would happen. Of course, this is nothing more than a hypothetical, and I'd like to make sure to point that out just a little extra bit. This is nothing more than a hypothetical. The Greek prime minister did not die today. He is still alive right now and perfectly okay from what we understand. However, it is a big question to ask, what about the security of these Western leaders while they're in Ukraine? What if that was to happen differently? What would the response actually be? Would we do anything at all? And it looks like a lot of y'all believe that there would be a response, but some of y'all, like Matthew, have a little bit less faith in NATO and their more so rock-solid resolve, and may think that they wouldn't do anything at all. But still, it's an interesting discussion to be had, and I would hope that in the future, we would see that NATO would stand up for our leaders, but, the reality may be a little less fortunate. But speaking of which, we have seen that some NATO countries have started to really move on trying to protect and take care of neutral, aligned, non-NATO countries within Eastern Europe, and really the only one that's left is Moldova. Moldova is not a NATO country, neither is it a part of the Russian CSTO. It is pretty much out there on its own. And at the moment, we have heard that Moldova has removed itself from the military treaty that they had with Transnistria and the Russian Federation today, meaning that the Moldovan military can now rapidly increase in size as much as the Moldovan government permits it to. We've also heard that the French are creating an agreement with the Moldovans to pretty much create a security pact. To read y'all exactly what Phytux News put out on this today, Moldova and France will sign a defense cooperation accord on Thursday as part of the West's efforts to strengthen their former Soviet states' capabilities amid what they fear are increasing efforts by Russia to destabilize Moldova. Hopefully this works. The French seem to be the ones that are starting to spearhead campaigns and initiatives within the area of Eastern Europe to try and support countries that are neutral or non-Russian aligned to make sure that they will move on into being a Western nation or a part of NATO, or at least to contain or stop completely the spread of Russian control into countries within this region. Hopefully this will help. We don't really know what the security accord is going to be leading to, whether this means that French weapons are now going to flow in large numbers into Moldova for the Moldovan armed forces to use, or whether this means that French forces may be put into Moldova if a conflict was to break out with the Transnistrians. We're not exactly sure what the real details are behind this whole security accord, but nevertheless, it is good to see that France is once again stepping up and taking some initiative on dealing with the Russians and trying to also stop them from possibly conducting an aggressive action against the Moldovans here within the next few months, which many people, including us here on this channel, are pretty much expecting at this point based off of the usual Russian playbook that we saw leading up to the war in Ukraine. Speaking of initiative being taken by nations to deal with the Russians, no country has had greater initiative on dealing with the Russian Federation than the nation of Ukraine itself, which still is fighting the war with the Russian Federation to this very day, much like they were yesterday when we covered the news then. We've seen that the Ukrainians are taking a massive initiative on working to destroy the Russian Navy as well as vital Russian assets that are near the waterways that the Russians claim control over in illegally occupied Crimea. We got to see today that a brand new kamikaze drone is being unveiled by the Ukrainian SBU, and this is the Sea Baby drone Avdiivka. This thing carries a metric ton, meaning about 2,000 pounds of explosives, and also is able to travel in a whopping distance of 1,000 kilometers. This drone, being able to travel a whopping 1,000 kilometers, is able to travel an incredible 621 miles. Probably being one of the longest range drones of the war. This means that if this drone was launched from the area of Odessa, it would be able to reach not only to Sevastopol, but all the way to the coast of Turkey and pretty much turn around and come all the way back to Ukraine if it wanted to. This means that this drone has an unlimited range, practically, as far as this war is concerned, and will be able to target any Russian assets anywhere in the Black Sea, and be able to do it as long as it needs to. The fact that it can travel pretty much the entire length, even at its farthest, literally, it can travel from Odessa to the coastline of Georgia on the other side of the Black Sea completely, and it would have just run out of range when it made it to the coast of Georgia. Going off of that,
man, that's not a sea baby. That's a sea daddy.
yeah, man, and the Russians are about to start calling this thing daddy. But check this thing out.
For real.
When you see them standing in front of it, they named the new model of drone Avdiivka, by the way, in honor of the city of Avdiivka.
So, wait a minute. I'm trying to look on top of the drone real quick. So, I'm seeing one of those infrared marine cameras. There's a Starlink, and there's also some other satellite of some sort on the back of it. That's interesting. It's like literally, I don't want to say homemade because that's like an insult to it, but it's very DIY, but very well made.
And it is very maneuverable and rapidly fast, to put it in the best terms I can. But we can see
a bit of rapidity.
A little bit of rapidity, yeah. A little bit of speed. Throwing up that murky brown water. I love to see it.
It's got like is that like a jet? Like a Ski-Doo type engine, that thing?
I have absolutely no idea. I mean, it's really kicking it, though, and it looks like it may be.
Yeah, it's going.
But that thing is going for it. And speaking of going for it, now that may be a new drone, but we have to give a massive credit to the drones of the Ukrainian forces, such as the Sea Babies and the Maguras, that have been doing unbelievable work against the Russian Navy. This kind of brings us down into the area of illegally occupied Crimea, where we get to talk about a video that was released today, for some reason, by the Russians, showing the Kunatovs sinking back on the 14th of February on Valentine's Day. I want to make sure to show this clip because while this instance of the Caesar Kunikov sinking is somewhat old, this video is brand new. We never got to see this before, and this was released just today, giving us a very rare look at the actual view, or the POV, of a Russian sailor on board the Kunikov as it was being attacked and destroyed by this swarm of Maguras and Sea Babies that had ended up attacking it near the coast of Crimea. Here is the clip. We can see the sailor moving around inside the ship. At this point, there's no audio on the clip, and it now appears that he's going outside of the superstructure, where we can see right there one of these Sea Babies going in circles. We can finally hear audio, as they're now trying to light up the drone, but missing everything.
Man, those tracers like bounce off the water like it's like concrete or something.
Man, it'd be concrete.
And they missed almost all the shots. It's crazy.
they
Like, how'd they miss everything?
And now you see them firing again. This guy almost getting right in the way of the barrel to his left and getting his brains blown out. Great job, sailor. When you see the Magura coming back in again, the Russians still attempting to fire at it.
And is that the best thing the Russians have is small arms to try to ward off a drone attack?
Pretty much. A lot of Russian ships have absolutely no smaller secondary weapons. Most ships in the modern day, as a matter of fact, usually just have a handful of primary weapons, primary main guns, and then almost no secondaries in the modern day. Very different than the ships of old, for example, in the Second World War, where ships were bristling with secondary weapons. And I think that in the world of drone attacks like these, now occurring quite commonly against modern naval vessels, we're probably going to see the return of bristling ships covered head to toe with a large amount of small secondary weapons. Well, you now see our Ruski sailor running back into the ship, and then looking back as tracer fire lights up the water line, and it looks like they're still missing him. By the way, just to put this into a really good lens, the Caesar Kunikov is moving in this clip at approximately 7 knots, which means maybe about 8 or 9 miles an hour. They are in perfectly calm waters, meaning that the ship is not rocking at all, and the firing platform that these guys are shooting from is very stable. So for the most part, when you really think about this, these guys are firing pretty much just standing still on a coastline, pretty much, for how fast this ship is moving, and also how calm the seas are, and they still can't hit a single drone.
I know that Russian captain's on the deck right now saying, "Oh, bля, we're doomed."
Man, this guy is watching this terrible spread of gunfire going, "Oh my god, what are they doing?"
They're going to empty everything they've got on that one drone.
I think they are, and it didn't succeed anyways because the Kunikov got hit and went down. Oh, nothing like a good old naval battle. I love a good naval battle. But the Ukrainians seem to always be on the winning side on these things. Oh!
Oh, dear. Oh, no.
Oh, no. Oh, no. That thing is going down fast.
Well, I guess you could say the Russians' ship came in contact with the drone, and they hit it.
This part was so bad they ended up muting the audio in the video so you couldn't hear everyone freaking out on the clip.
Don't want to hear them crying in a corner, scared to death.
I don't want to die, Blin! Please! Please, Blin! We still see them laying down fire at drones in the distance, although, somehow, some way... Oh!
Oh!
They're not catching...
Another one?
So how the hell... So actually, there was like, I think 4 Maguras that ended up hitting the Kunikov, and these are only 2 of them. How the hell are they seeing all of the Maguras like 500 meters away in the pitch black, but they can't see the ones that are literally ramming into the hull right below the gunners? How are they doing that? Like, I don't know how in the world you can just be that blind, but they did it. And that was pretty much the only clip that we've gotten from on board the Kunikov when it was being attacked and destroyed by all of the Maguras that were swarming that thing near that area of Crimea. But I gotta take y'all over to the other side of Crimea to a shipwreck that happened just yesterday with the Sergey Kotov, or the Sergey Kotov, whatever you want to call it. It is pretty much almost a very similar name to the Caesar Kunikov in my mind, so it's really hard to even get the two to be separate, at least mentally. But the Sergey Kotov joined the Caesar Kunikov just yesterday in being a part of the Russian submarine fleet. And we actually got to get an exact location report on where the Caesar Kunikov was. This is a Sentinel image of the area leading into the Kerch Strait, and you can see right here all of the vessels that are in holding, waiting to try and get into the Taman oil depot, or more so the oil docks, to try and pick up some oil and then move out of the area. The Sergey Kotov was actually right there That little blip right around there. And there's the Twin Star, which is where some of our footage came from that we're going to be showing in a second. The Sergey Kotov picked up the Maguras, or the Sea Babies, on radar and ended up beginning to panic and started to pretty much swerve through the ships in holding to try and dodge the drones, or to make them try and run into other merchant ships and end up taking out the merchant ships as compared to the naval, well, the military vessel. It ended up not going well for them. Of course, the Sergey Kotov ended up getting hit and sank, but the footage that we got was unequivocally fire, because we got to see it from the merchant mariners, the Russian merchant mariners' perspective, of the ship getting targeted and chased by an entire mob of naval drones that we got to see on film. That one was deleted, but we're going to be going to the second one.
Oh, why'd they do that to us? Come on, man.
I have no idea, but here's the other clip, which is 1 minute and 6 seconds long. So that right there is the Sergey Kotov. We all will see in the clip, and it looks a little bizarre. It looks like the Sergey Kotov only exists back to where the mouse is, right here, but there is actually an entire area on the back of the Sergey Kotov that exists back there. Y'all may actually also remember that we covered why that's the case here on this channel. Don't you remember, Matthew, that we showed on satellite footage that the Russians were painting parts of their ships black to try and make them look a little smaller?
Yes, that was the razzle-dazzle rabbit hole, I believe.
Yeah, that was the whole razzle-dazzle rabbit hole. And this Sergey Kotov actually had the cheapest implementation of razzle-dazzle on the stern of the ship. And you can see that right here on the clip. See where the wake is right there? You can see that it's pretty much highlighting that rear area of the hull that's been painted solid black.
Oh, yeah, it's not doing too good, man, because you can kind of see the bottom of where they really didn't paint it quite good. Exactly.
Yeah, also, by the way, to give a little bit more context at the beginning of the clip, so that way y'all can kind of get the scene that we're watching here. This is, and let me go back to this map, because this will help to explain greatly what we're seeing here. This is a video taken from the ship, the Twin Star. It's looking, at this moment in the clip, north and east towards the port of Taman up here, and that's what all the lights are in the background. Those are coming from the shore near the Taman oil refinery and the oil docks. The Sergey Kotov has ended up at this point in the clip pretty much running a full circle around the Twin Star, pretty much running around it like a table, kind of like a child runs away from a drunk stepdad who's trying to, you know, get him. It's run all the way around the Twin Star and is now going all the way back out towards the east again, and that's where the video clip started. So we're watching this thing pretty much come almost full circle around the Twin Star when the clip began. We're seeing Taman in the background, and the Ukrainian drones have ended up chasing the Sergey Kotov all the way around the Twin Star, and y'all are about to see them on the clip here in a second. So there goes the Sergey. It's firing at the drones that are right behind it.
Это что это? Как аскольд, который стоит. Такой же.
We can see the Twin Star here. We can see the front of it as well. And we hear the sporadic fire of the Sergey Kotov as it tries to destroy the drones. We can also see that the Sergey Kotov is literally whipping that bitch around the corner. It is whipping up such a wake, it's unbelievable. Like, look at that wake, Matthew.
Yeah, seriously. Man, they're negating the effect of their razzle-dazzle, man.
Что-то прям близко от нас фигачит.
Sounds like a dying dog in the background, too.
That's the Russian captain on the loudspeaker saying, "Man your stations, man! Man your stations!"
He said,
He's a little drunk. And there it is.
oh, one drone.
Look at that. They zoomed in. The crew went, "Oh, bled, there it is." And they zoomed in on one of the drones speeding inside the Kotov and not being stopped at all. Look at it. There it goes.
Вон второй дрон.
One looking at it.
Dude, that thing's like a little torpedo, honestly.
That's kind of funny.
Волной сейчас.
That giant ship running from pretty much a ski-doo, like 50 miles an hour.
They're unloading on that thing.
And there's another one right there, actually. There it goes.
Oh, they're screwed.
And then, also, by the way, let me go back to yesterday to try and put the two clips together. Here is a clip, I believe this is the right one, from yesterday, showing, I believe this is just from a few seconds after, on the Twin Star, of the Kotov being hit. So you see it's still firing. And that was the first drone impact right there. So that's putting all of the video footage that we have together on the Sergey Kotov into one. It's giving y'all the best look we've ever gotten at a Russian warship getting hit and destroyed by Ukrainian naval drones. It's actually more comical than one would imagine, watching a 300-foot-long warship running at full speed so fast that the jets on the back of the vessel are throwing up a mist of water because the engines are working that hard to get away from a little, pretty much a skidoo, pretty much is what it looks like, going at about 50 miles an hour at the thing, and they're completely defenseless against it. So they're just trying to outrun it or get away.
If the Russians would have simply remembered the simple training that they had received a long time ago of tool group, they could have taken the drone down, man. They could have destroyed it and saved their vessel, but they forgot, man. They don't remember their training very well.
Man, as the captain was on the radio over there, Matthew, on the ship, on the loudspeaker, yelling for everyone to start gunning at the drone, he was yelling, "Shoot the drone! Tool group! Tool group!" He was sitting there going at it, man. You can hear him on that loudspeaker going, "Tool group!" He was like, "Tool group!" As he hit. But, man.
Next time, the Ukrainians should put like a mannequin on top of that drone boat that has someone like flicking them off and stuff. Talking about F you Russian warship with it running at full speed like the little drone boat at the ship. That would be hilarious. Dude, like riding it like a cowboy.
Or better yet, Matthew, you know what would be even better? Is to sit there and have a little mannequin up there with like a cowboy hat, like holding the hat up in the air. Because when the drone's bobbing up and down, you know what it's going to look like? It's going to look like it's slapping its hat on the boat as it's racing towards the coast. Yeah. It's going to be like a little cowboy gun at the thing. But nevertheless, that's all of the naval footage that we have from today. But we've got to say, here on this channel, watching this footage, it is unbelievable to see that the Russian Navy hides in fear and has been almost decimated at this point. Well, beyond decimated, it's almost being destroyed by nothing more than really modified skidoos. Like, those things really are just modified skidoos, if y'all don't know. That's what the original Sea Baby drone, and let me go get that, is based off of. And let me go show y'all that the best I can. Here we go. And then let me go pull up a skidoo. Images. Skidoo makes snowmobiles. Sea-Doo is what I'm talking about. So, Sea-Doo, there we go. A Sea-Doo jet ski. And let me go get a modern Sea-Doo jet ski. And let me show y'all that this thing is really... okay, so here we go. Here's a Sea-Doo jet ski right there. And then this is a Sea Baby drone. And from what we know, the Sea Baby is made off of some kind of a recreational Sea-Doo-like vehicle. The Sea Baby is based off of something a little bit larger than the Sea-Doo, but that's really what it is. And it's just a remote-controlled Sea-Doo. And they use those to blow up Russian warships. I mean, it's insane to think about that. Just the sheer minimal cost that the Ukrainians are putting into these things, and they're ending up getting maximum returns out of it, and also giving us some hilarious clips, like watching a Russian ship run like a dog with its tail tucked between its legs through a whole bunch of merchant ships to try and get away from the thing. But with that, we're now going to be moving on out of our naval news and actually on into Russia. But before we do, I do have to circle back for just a quick moment, because a lot of people have been talking about the Moldovan situation and the military treaties that Moldova has backed out of today, and also the security pact that appears to be formed here on Thursday, which is just tomorrow, with the French government to try and make sure that Moldova will be prepared for whatever the the Russians may have coming their way. And a lot of people have been speaking about this in somewhat more ominous means than normal. Although we try and be optimists on this channel, it appears that many people are not so optimistic about the future for Moldova and believe that it actually might be a little grim. But Matthew, what are people actually saying?
All right, so on the poll question of Moldova withdrawing from their military limitation treaty and also France pledging support to them in case of a military incursion, what are your thoughts? 65% said Moldova is preparing for invasion, and 23% said Moldova is simply beefing up. And this is not bulking season. Moldova is not trying to do that, in my opinion. I think they are preparing for the worst, and that is always what you should do as a state that has a competent military, is always prepare for the worst case scenario. And if it never happens, the worst thing that happened was you spent some money to beef up your defense, and it turns out to be nothing. But if it turns out that you need it, it'll be worth its weight in gold. And withdrawing from that military limitation treaty was a necessary step to build up their forces in Moldova. They couldn't have done it otherwise. And also, I don't know what has gotten into France. I got to return back to that as well. France is becoming like the new European leader of NATO. It seems like they're trying to basically vie for support from the U.S. And sort of take the reins and sort of take control. And even though I think the U.S. should be in charge of NATO because we put the most into it, or at least contribute the most to the common defense, I'm okay with France stepping up because right now we're not. So if nobody is, then somebody should, and France appears to be willing to take on that role. So good on them. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to say that originally it appeared that Macron specifically was trying to do this as some sort of a political move, maybe to try and move America and posture us back into a position to be the head of things. But it actually seems like France is just going all in and taking a new, more aggressive approach against the Russians than ever before. And I gotta say, I have a massive respect for the French government for doing something like that. I think that what Macron is doing right now is something that a lot of European countries, a lot of NATO countries, should emphasize in leaders that are concerned about the geopolitical situation, or more so the diplomatic situation of NATO and the rest of the world. France is certainly doing a lot to help out in Europe. And also, there is a big reason why they're doing this, is that Macron and the French government are trying to posture Europe to pretty much become its own separate sphere from the United States of America and be almost completely financially and also militarily independent from the United States, to remove them, as Macron believes, from the ebb and flow of American whims that sometimes come and go, like we're seeing a little bit right now with Ukraine. That part I don't necessarily agree with, because creating a separate European sphere only means to weaken the incredibly huge and undefeatable Western sphere that we have at the moment. But beyond that, beyond my disagreement on that idea, I do have to say that the French aggressiveness in this situation is something that I think many other countries should be looking at supporting, and not only that, look at fostering within their governments. It's great to see that France is once again, like it has throughout history, stood up aggressively for the independence and liberty of other nations. In case if anyone doesn't know, the French actually helped out the United States of America to gain our independence back in the Revolutionary War from 1775 to 1783. And they were actually the largest contributor to our independence. If it was not for the French, the United States of America actually would not exist today. Although the French government at the time had ulterior motives for supporting America, and that became clear just a little bit further down the road, they still are the reason the United States exists today. And it appears that they're still trying to help out countries like Ukraine that are also fighting similarly for their own freedom and independence against nations that may not have the best interests for them. Although I will say this, the British did not have terrible interests for America, or were treating Americans poorly. They actually were quite nice. They just wanted the United States to actually pay taxes for once in America's life, to pay off the French and Indian War that the British had pretty much fought on America's behalf, and it really asked for nothing in return during the course of that entire war, but ended up running into some financial troubles once the war had ended. So, can't really blame the British for that. But nevertheless, the French helped create America today, and that was a huge benefit because America's a great place. I kind of like it. Not to say I hate Britain. Love Britain too. Britain's an amazing country and an amazing friend of America. But if America didn't exist today, where would we be? We would be without French fries, without hamburgers, and without modern Italian cuisine. Those are things that the world just cannot go without. But still,
I sure do love the British. And a guy's fish and chips and a cuppa.
Matthew actually likes tea, by the way. He actually likes Yorkshire tea specifically, to all the British viewers out there who may also like Yorkshire tea. Matthew drinks that quite commonly.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's
I just can't drink it very much recently because it's like the caffeine sends my system into overdrive. Even tea now sends me into complete overdrive, so I have to cool it with the caffeine for a while. But yeah, tea, I love it. That Yorkshire tea is great.
It honestly.
And Dante said Yorkshire Gold. I don't think it's gold. I think it's just a normal one. It was like $3 for a huge box of it. Very cheap. I was shocked at how cheap tea is, but it's pretty tasty.
I gotta say, it is actually fairly good stuff. I haven't had a lot recently, but I have had some in the past. It's fairly good. But I have to drink coffee because I gotta have the strongest amount of caffeine before the stream. But beyond that, it's good to hear that the French are stepping up and helping the Moldovans. I think it's a good move. I think it's an aggressive one. And I think that NATO needs to start changing our stance to a more aggressive and steadfast one than one that is more passive and trying to look for the cracks within the wall. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. But before we move on into the the Russian news and then the Ukrainian news, and also a little bit of news coming from the Southern Red Sea about a very unfortunate incident that occurred today, I want to make sure that we get to talk to some of y'all about some of the big questions that y'all have thrown in tonight, and also the massive amounts of support that people have shown to the channel and wanting it to keep running. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our first super chat of the night is a massive $100 donation
Dang!
from Bob Y. And that is Bob Y's first ever super chat of the channel, and YouTube gave him some balloons with a big number 1. And we appreciate it very much, Bob. He says, I'll get the support started off early to a good start. And he certainly did. That was a very good start. And Bob, thank you very much for your generosity. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, that is insane, Bob White. That is your first super chat ever. And it was massive. It's actually wild because we've actually had so many people like you, Bob Y, recently that throw in their first super chat, and they're unbelievable in size. It's incredible. And I got to thank you so much, Bob Y, for that massive support. And I can't believe that you did that just to start off the support tonight to a great start. That is incredibly kind of you, and I thank you so much, Bob Y, for appreciating this channel so much and finding it to be so worthwhile that you would support this channel like that. It means a lot to both Matthew and me because you're helping our channel to be possible, and we love to know the Lee Spring Army enjoys the channel, and folks like you, Bob Y, enjoyed enough that you want the channel to keep running. And so, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and that is just unbelievable. Thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $22 super chat from another legend, Duncan VR. And Duncan puts in his traditional and signature animal noises. And since the other night it appeared to be very popular for me to read them off very serious, because that apparently is more comedic, apparently, I'm going to do the same thing tonight. He says, Ba-mooba, ba-ba, moo, Kermit, now talking, now tackling, with the marmot on Tinder chat. Uh-oh, meow, ba, moo, oh. The Russian captain said, ba-ba, moo, moo. I got to get me one of them sea babies. Ba-ba, oh man, meow, quack, quack, ba. No channel jokes, please. Ba, moo, quack. Man, that could be a wild one right there. I'm not sure if I'm reading into that too much, but that could be wild.
Man, I'm telling you what, man. Oh man, come here! to beat the living daylights out of the marmot, dude. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, Duncan. The marmot would make Kermit a red stain on the floor. Like, the marmot don't play. Like, Kermit stands no chance against the freaking marmot. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for the incredible support, Duncan VR, and helping this channel to keep on running, because like we always say, it is actually you, Duncan VR, who helps to make this channel possible individually. And it's every single person in the Lee Spring Army who does their part that makes this channel possible by hitting the like button, by throwing in comments in the live chat, by just being here, saying thank you. And also folks like you, Duncan VR, who throw in support to the channel. All of y'all make it possible. And each one of y'all is special and does your part in their own way. And I gotta thank you, Duncan VR, for always doing your part in your own very unique way and throwing in a little joke so that way we can get a little laugh. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And thank you for being an old guard and a Lee Spring Army legend. And with that, we are on to the last question of the segment. And thank you so much once again, Duncan.
And the last one of the segment goes to Historic Tasmanian, who throws in a $15 donation. And thank you very much as well, Historic Tasmanian, for that support. He says, just likes to thanking all LSA for thought during my illness over the last week. And pizza makes it better. And love you guys. And thank you very much, Historic Tasmanian, for the kind words as well. And while I'm thinking about it, huge shout out to Green Eyed Girl as well, who's apparently also having a rough time and is apparently in the hospital from what I'm told. And we hope you get better as well. Because I was informed about that about 30 minutes ago by someone here in the chat. So I hope you're doing all right and recovering fast. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, Historic Tasmanian, we love to hear the Lee Spring Army, every single one of them, is always so supportive and helpful to each other. And I love to know that everyone always sends support to folks who aren't doing too well and give them best wishes. We've had so many people in and out of the hospital lately here on this channel, and I hate to hear, Historic Tasmanian, that you were one of them. And I also hate to hear the Green-Eyed Girl's one of them too, just to mention a very small handful of the folks that we know of that are having some medical issues. Nevertheless, I hope that you are continuing to be on the up and up, and I'm glad to hear that we were able to keep you company here on the channel, and the Lee Spring Army was, while you were getting better. It's always a big thing to me to know that the Lee Spring Army is kind and caring, like we've always been, and I hope that it continues to stay that way all the way until the end of time, or until the channel falls apart, one or the other. But nevertheless, pizza always makes illness better, and we love you too, Historic Tasmanian. We love the entire Lee Spring Army, and we love you specifically, Historic Tasmanian, because you are a channel legend and an old guard. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we have reached the end of this little question segment, and we're going to be moving back into our news, but just in case, because we do have a decent amount of new people here again tonight. We actually had a peak just a while ago, not too long ago, of 6,000 live viewers on. And whenever we have numbers that are that high, there's actually a decent amount of new people here that are watching this channel for the first time. And so I kind of have to go through this explanation every night that there's new people. If you are wondering, do we answer questions for free? The answer is yes. We can't really get to a lot of them. It kind of depends on how many super chats come in each night. And of course, super chats help the channel to keep running. So we prioritize them in answering them. Because the folks who do super chat are making this channel possible for us to run tonight. And so we want to make sure to address their comments and their support first and thank each of them individually. So even if someone puts in $1, we thank them. If someone puts in $500, we thank them all the same. But we do get it eventually to live chats, because the premise of the channel is that it's entirely free to watch here on the live streams. It is completely sponsor free, ad free, and on top of that, politics free, which a lot of people really enjoy. So the only thing that supports the channel is the super chat. So that's why we read them all first. But if you stick around and you ask a question in the live chat, there is a chance that near to the end of the stream, we will be able to answer your question. But with that, I hope that does address that well, because I never want anyone to be on this channel and think it is a pay-to-play system. It is not a pay-to-play. That's also, just to quickly go into that, why we do not have channel memberships. A lot of people always see channel memberships in any YouTube channel, and it's a huge way for most channels to try and make $1. I would rather completely forego making $1 on channel memberships, because I feel like it stratifies our live chat, makes a hierarchy system where people are scared to challenge larger supporters, in just idle discussion. And on top of that, I think it looks extremely tacky. So we just completely forgo the channel memberships, and we just do super chats only, because it's not a pay-to-play system. It's entirely free to watch, but if you do want to support the channel, you can, and it will prioritize you in having your question answered. I just want to make sure that we get that out there as best and as clear as possible. And also, one other thing, super chats go to supporting the channel directly. That's something else that I'd like to make quite clear, because that's how we do this. We do this as a job. If you do want to support Ukraine, however, we do have a link in the description below to United24. It'll take you directly to their website, or you can wait until each Sunday every single week, because we also run fundraisers for nonprofits, recognized in massive nonprofits that are operating in Ukraine, that help them out. So with that, I hope that does address all of that fairly well for all of the new viewers, because welcome to the Lee Spring Army, and I hope that you're here to stay, and I hope that you get a pretty good understanding of how this very unique and very different way of running a live stream works. But moving on from that, and on into our Russian news, we got to hear some faint explosions within the city of Voronezh today, but we really didn't get a lot of follow-through on what these explosions were. We were told that some Ukrainian drones were shot down, but we weren't really told a lot more than that. That's the end of that clip, and hopefully we'll get some positive news of some successful Ukrainian attacks occurring in Voronezh. Beyond that, we also got to see that there were some oil depots, or more so warehouses, burning inside of Kursk. I get so used to saying that it's an oil depot, but it's actually some kind of lubricant or something that's on fire here. A little toasty.
Very toasty, блядь. Very toasty.
But anyways, moving on from that, nice to see that the Ukrainians were able to successfully attack Russian infrastructure today. Speaking of Russia today, you know something that's not going to be happening tomorrow? Russia. So moving on from that, while Russia exists today, Russia will not exist tomorrow. And one of the great things that's going to be helping to make that even more possible is a brand new remote control combat vehicle called the Rage. And it's all the rage these days.
Yes, sir.
Man, this
100
thing...
100.
Yes, sir! 100, 100, laughing face, smiley face. But this little thing right here is a whopper. This little thing is a remote-controlled drone made by the Ukrainians that has a machine gun mounted inside of it that will be used to help support infantry in attacks.
The Ukrainians have to be coming up with the coolest stuff. Like, it's outdoing the United States, like a cool division and cool factor by a lot these days. Like, the drones and small weapons are just outpacing us.
They really are. And also, by the way, I hate to say this, y'all, I have to mute it because there's a lot of copyrighted music beyond the very opening clip. But we get to see a lot of footage of this thing in testing. And also the Ukrainian military talking specifically about what this drone's capabilities really are, which is actually quite impressive. It can actually cover a decent amount of terrain due to the very high clearance that it has above the ground. The machine gun, I believe, is a PKP. And also, there are some variants that I've been able to find that may be able to carry an even larger gun, like the NSV, although those seem to be very rare because the weight of the NSV is quite heavy. Nevertheless, this thing is going to certainly help the Ukrainian infantry to push forward because it's pretty much a remote-controlled machine gun crew. One thing, however, that I have not been able to find is how they are going to address the issues with the gun jamming. From what I know, there is no built-in system on this drone to deal with a machine gun jamming, so if the machine gun jams in the system, it then goes out completely. So hopefully that does not happen often, or there is a way, and I just have not been able to discover it yet, that this thing is designed to be able to clear the jams inside the machine gun.
It's got like suspension on the front of it, like it's articulating.
Yeah, I was noticing that actually. It does have articulated suspension. They really did.
I gotta say, who else wants one of these for Christmas? Because I do. Why is that barrel so small though? Do you just notice that?
It's actually pretty big. That is, I think, something like a 18-inch long barrel. But half of it is inside of the little turret, so it looks pretty short, sticking out of it.
Did you mention what caliber it's shooting yet?
I think it's like a 7.62 by 5.4 rimmed cartridge, which is fairly common. But it's
a very narrow barrel for that. Like it seems like it's like a 22 barrel or something.
You know, I'm kind of curious because look at that receiver on this thing. This is not a, like, the barrel is of a PKP, but this receiver is not a PKP receiver right there. I don't know what that is, but it's a really funky looking, very simply made one.
Real funky. But it's cool though, whatever it is.
It is pretty neat. That is a very rusty front sight. Oh my lord.
They won't be needing that too much anyway.
Nah, they won't. They got the targeting cameras right over there, so the front sight's really there just for aesthetic.
It's very stable too, like no recoil. It's not jumping backwards hardly at all. Yeah. I would rate this thing a Doug score of 9 out of 10.
I mean, it's fairly decent. It's not bad. But that is a really close target right there. Like, that's he's pretty much shooting point blank at like 30 yards. You know, I could see this thing. I could see several of these. Like, say, have like 3 of these things supporting an infantry squad. You could use these things to maneuver these machine guns wherever you wanted and to lay down fire support for advancing Ukrainian infantry. That would probably be greatly beneficial in keeping the Russians down from suppressive fire. That would be a huge benefit. I don't really think this thing should be used individually, however, because its effect would be greatly diminished. It should be used alongside the infantry, or even attached to an infantry unit, so that way it can be used in conjunction with their efforts instead of used as an individual item. But we don't really know.
Really though, like even though this is super cool, I want one. Like it's really sick. I think the better solution might have been to maybe put a gun on a larger drone and fly it around and use that as your like mobile gun instead of the RC truck there, because it seems like it's a little bit more cumbersome to get the truck over terrain than to simply fly a drone really fast into the battlefield and then zip it right back out if it's possible.
That's true. I'd agree with that, but I don't really know. I don't know if a drone can carry the weight or handle the recoil of a larger machine gun yet. Maybe that's what's holding him back from doing that. But I would say that that probably would be better. But really quickly, I actually saw someone talk about the cartridge, because I said it was a 7.62 by 5.4 rimmed, and someone said, "You mean rimfire?" No. All rimfire cartridges in the modern world are obsolete and don't even exist anymore, except for 22 long rifle. I believe that's one of the few, because there's like a handful, but 22 long rifle is the most common rimfire cartridge that still exists. But what I'm talking about is a 7.62 by 5.4R, and I just say that the R stands for rimmed, and I believe it actually does. The reason why it's called rimmed is that while it does have a center fire primer, and let me see if I actually cannot find a picture of that, but it is a center fire round, meaning that, you know, it's not a rim fire like a 22 or anything, but it does have this massive lip at the back of the bullet, or at the back of the cartridge specifically. Then that's what it means by rimmed. Back when cartridge ammunition was fairly new, and especially bolt action rifles were becoming fairly new, a lot of cartridges had these giant rims on the back of them to help with extraction. After a while, and also another thing is, so that way this cartridge should actually be properly seated in the rifle each time, all along with extraction. So it was a bit of a big deal to have these things, and you can see this on a lot of older cartridges, and I believe the 3040 Krag, and let me see if I can find a picture of that. And here we go. Yep, exactly what I'm talking about. This is one of the earlier munitions types that also had the rimmed cartridge as well, made for earlier bolt-action rifles. But oddly enough, the Russians still use this cartridge to this day. The SVD fires the 7.62 by 54R cartridge. So does the PKP machine gun, and many other guns that the Russian Federation uses along with Ukraine still use this kind of a cartridge. It is old by all accounts. Even the design of the round is fairly old. But another cool thing to tell you all about is that when these rounds were kind of originally in service, although the 7.62 by 5.4R never had this, the bullets were actually rounded at the front. This kind of a pointed bullet is actually called a Spitzer bullet, and these are a fairly new invention, almost only a century old, and everyone started to convert over to the Spitzer bullet because it provides better ballistics at greater ranges. Who would have thought? But anyways, moving on from that rabbit hole, I had to make sure to clear that up because it's not a rimfire cartridge, but it has a large rim at the back of the cartridge, mostly because of its ancient design.
You know, I wonder if Ukraine's ever tried getting a couple of those Boston Dynamics spot robots to have some dogs running around the battlefield. You know, because Ukraine's got that dog in them.
Man, they do. You know, Boston Dynamics is actually working with the Army right now to try and get those little Boston Dynamics dogs to help carry the infantry's extra weight. You know, maybe lighten up the backpack a little bit, although we all know that's not going to happen. But also...
yeah, it'll be a good moneymaker, though, at least.
100%, 100%. But a huge happy birthday to Psyops, and welcome back.
Hey! Happy birthday!
Happy birthday! But we see the Ukrainian continuing to talk about it. I'm going to speed forward to the footage. So we can see them loading, I believe, the little drone right here. See them lifting open the ammo case. It's actually a fairly large ammo can. I would assume that that could carry maybe 200 rounds in a belt. Now we can see them unclipping the feed system as well.
I like that little bit that's flexible. That's like a good piece of engineering. I like that.
That is really simple, too. It looks like it was very simply made, but it does the same thing that the very mechanically complex ones do, or the really well-made ones do. And we see him reclipping it. Let's see if we ever get a look at the kind of ammo this thing is feeding, because that would be really helpful to figure out what caliber machine gun this really is, because we can't tell at all from the actual machine gun. It looks to me like a PKP, but we're not exactly sure. Let's speed forward a little bit more. It's still not loaded. Still not loaded. And let's see here. Wait a minute. We can actually see the ammo right there. I have no damn clue what that is. That actually looks a little bit bigger than 7.62 by 5.4. That may actually be the one with the NSV.
I was about to say, average 5.56 round is what it looked like.
Oh, that's way bigger. I mean, this is huge. 5.56 is like microscopic compared to whatever is in that drone right now. And Pizan Fab said way more than 200 rounds, probably, but you know, I wanted to go with a very conservative estimate. And they're not showing us what the display.
Can I drive the boat?
That looks a lot like an NSV right there. I just wish we could get some info on what kind of rounds this thing shoots. And we got to see a little bit of them right there. No. That is 7.62 by 5.4R, so it is a PKP.
That's an oddly thin barrel for such a large round.
Modern metallurgy. What can I say? Modern metallurgy. It's good. It's that good. But if I showed you a PSL, you would believe the barrel is wildly thin on that thing too, because it really is. But moving on from that and into our next bit of location unknown news, we also got to see some training ongoing in eastern Ukraine. We got to see them climbing over the playground. We also got to see them running through some fire. Of course, infantry training and all that stuff. We got to see them standing in formation. And most importantly, we got to see the old run them over with a BMP part of the training. So overall...
Oh, yeah. I love that part, man. Run me over. Put the tank right over my head. That's right. Go right ahead. Don't make any mistake.
Get down, damn it! What do you mean? What do you mean? There's a damn tank rolling over you. Get down! But anyways... That is the end of
the Ukrainian soldier said, "What is this going to help me learn, Blyat? What will this teach me?" And the instructor said, "Get down. It'll teach you. I don't know. Run him over. Just go ahead."
the Ukrainian soldier says, "Am I going to be okay?" And then the drill sergeant says, "Of course you will be okay. Okay, run him over." Beep, beep, beep. But anyways, I don't some people say this is to give some courage and bravery, but I feel like there's a better way to do that, like with the barbed wire thing that they do here in the U.S. military, where you go under the barbed wire course while they just live fire a 50 caliber over the barbed wire about a few feet above you. I feel like
what if you got a big head? Like, are you going to be able to survive this part of the training, or is it going to be pretty much over for you?
Dude, this would be over for me. My head would crush like a damn watermelon. It would just, it would be done.
It's like, what is this? Like a carnival ride or something? You must be yay tall in the head to survive this training or something. I don't know, man. Like, I don't see the benefit of stuff like this either. Me personally, it's like, what do we train them to do? Like, have no survival instincts? Like, don't get run over by a tank?
And also, some people are saying it's to teach bravery. And yeah, I know that. Like, that is actually like the official purpose of doing this. But I feel like we do it in the West in a better way by we have our people go through a barbed wire course where you have to get prone and crawl through mud under barbed wire. And the barbed wire is laid so thick that you can't get up. So all you can do is just stop moving. And at the exact same time, there is a machine gun nest fixed directly to the side, and they fire live rounds over these guys' heads as they're crawling through the barbed wire. That's a normal part of basic training, and it does the same thing. It's meant to instill a little bit of bravery in the soldiers, but I feel like it's done in a safer way, because if someone freaks out here and they stand up, they are going to get run over by that BMP. They're going to be severely injured. But in basic, it's very, very rare to ever see anyone be able to climb somehow up through the barbed wire without the machine gun stopping its fire and then get killed. So I feel like it's a safer way to do it and kind of instills the same thing. This seems a little bit dangerous, to get the same kind of principle. But moving on from that, it's time for us to move into our last bit of location unknown news, which is the Russian casualty report. And this was a good day.
12 in a day. Let's go. I'm telling you what, man, that's a big loss. Damn, what were the Ukrainians doing today? What, did they get on something today? What were they smoking?
Man, the White House was a crazy place. Everyone was on speed all the time. The 12 Bobcat skid steers were destroyed today. A wild day for the Russians. They lost a large amount of them. Along with 1,250 Russian soldiers being knocked out, along with 40 armored personnel carriers, 56 supply trucks, 21 tanks, 50 artillery pieces, 58 drones, 1 MLRS, 1 cruise missile, and 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, and the Sergey Kotov that was destroyed yesterday. And
That's a damn shame, man. So much stuff in one day. Like, it's okay for like a week if you lose this kind of stuff, but just 24 hours, 21 tanks. You're losing almost a tank an hour, and you're losing like way more than 1 vehicle or fuel tank an hour. Man, too much.
I mean, it is too much. And then we still have idiots. Although Zelensky actually came out and gave the number, Matthew, like how many Ukrainian soldiers have been wounded and killed over the war. People are still saying, why do you never report Ukraine losses? Wow, they're really getting to the bottom of this. Very smart people.
Well, this chart's called Russia's losses. See the title? Look at the title right there, Jedi. You don't have the Force with you today, do you?
Dude, this is the guy that goes into a skiing lesson class and says, why the hell is there no skydiving? Like, it's like, what are you, an idiot? Like, this is a skiing class. This ain't no skydiving class. But anyways, nice to see the Russians getting their asses beat like that. We're always happy to see that. And I gotta say, one hell of a record right there. One hell of a day. But moving on from that and on into our frontline news, we have a decent bit to cover, starting in Vilshana, where we got to see some Ukrainian tanks taking their time attacking some Russian positions. We're going to be muting that.
Oh,
but
yeah.
But we can see the boys are down there in the Discord call in the bottom right as they watch the Ukrainian tanks go to work.
Squad up on the left. Hit him on the left. Hit him on the right.
He's right there. He's right freaking there.
I don't know if they've ever slipped up on like one of these Discord calls. Said, okay, when the drone gets like destroyed or something, can we respawn? Yeah, let's send another drone up.
Dude, wouldn't that be funny?
That would be funny, man.
That would be...
I'm sure the Ukrainians wouldn't get a kick out of it. They're probably like, shut up, stupid. Get to work.
Dude, what the hell are you talking about, man? It's a freaking war. Like, that's what they'd say. What are you, stupid? And these tanks are literally just rolling down the entire tree line, just bombarding it as they go. I like to see this kind of stuff. It just reminds me of that time back in the day when the British Navy sailed up into Copenhagen and just obliterated Copenhagen and all the Danish ships that they had in port. They did that like 9 times, by the way, so I don't know which one I'm talking about specifically. You know, go open up a book. just you know, I can't tell you which one it was, but it was funny each time. Not because I don't like the Danish or anything. It's just that it's hilarious to think that the British just did that like 7 times, and every time everyone just rolled with it.
I just don't like one Danish man, that's all. Or Danish boy, I guess would be a more appropriate term.
Yeah. But anyways, we can see that Russian tanks continuing to roll and just continue to lay down that fire, that heat, that sweet Ukrainian heat. And
Let them have it.
And someone said, why are they operating without infantry? That was actually Dallas Borakua, channel legend. It's actually pretty common in the war to see both sides operating without infantry support. It doesn't mean it's an acceptable tactic. It still is a pretty bizarre thing to do. But I'm supposing that maybe the Ukrainians believe that there's very light amounts of AT that the Russians possess in this area. So tank operations without infantry support is deemed an acceptable risk, is maybe the best way I can explain what we're seeing here on film. Because we can see that the Russians are not bringing any AT against these tanks, and they are point blank against those Russian forces. And we can see these guys right here. Looks like they're trying to throw a flare. And now they're on the move. It looks like they may even be trying to flee the tree line where the Ukrainian tanks just were. Once again, maybe backing up the idea that these guys don't have any AT weapons. And they're continuing to try and move out of that field. We can see some shells maybe landing nearby. I can't tell if those are tank rounds. They don't look like them, honestly. Probably mortar rounds, more so. Yeah, they're mortar rounds because they're coming in a little too fast for a tank. But that's the end of the clip, and very interesting to see the Ukrainians continuing some action up in the Kupiansk area of the front line. Moving on down from that clip, and down into the area of the Kremenna Forest, we also got to see a Zoo Park counter-battery radar system getting destroyed in the Liman direction. And here's the clip. There's the Zoo Park. I don't know what's up with the Russians and naming their systems absolutely dumb things like Zoo Park. Like, I know, like, I feel stupid even saying the name of the system, but it's about to look really stupid when it gets blown up by a Ukrainian artillery strike, and it's supposed to be a counter battery system picking up incoming artillery strikes. Well, you see them just hammering the position that the zoo park's in. And
this isn't just any Ukrainian division. This is the swole juiced honey badger division that's absolutely zooted.
Dude, that honey badger right there, when it laughs, it doesn't go, it goes, yeah, something crazy crap like that.
It says more roids, roid rage, yes sir.
Dude,
100, 100.
This thing laughs like Beavis and Butthead. It goes, I'm the great Cornelio. But anyways, moving on from that, we also got to see some Ukrainian soldiers near the front lines. These soldiers being a part of the 95th Separate Polesian Air Assault Brigade. Check them out. They got a BTR-60. They're riding on the BTR-60. And most importantly, they got that winter camo. They're just straight up, like, you know, dripping. And speaking of drip, we got to move on down into the area of Avdiivka, where Russian forces be dripping out their skulls, because the Bradley was lighting up one of their BMPs today like it owed it money. This is a clip from the 47th Magura, as many of y'all can tell by the angry horsey up in the top corner. And there goes the Bradley just hamming up a BMP over there on the side. The Chad Russian, well, actually, I'm sorry, the Soy Boy BMP versus the absolute Chad-like Bradley, and we can see who won that battle. That's the end of that clip, and the Bradley then rolls on out, absolutely styling on the Russians. Speaking of which, we got to see near the Avdiivka area a switchblade being used on the Russians. Call this the streets of Detroit, because switchblades are becoming a lot more common these days. Check it out as it comes in on this group of Ruski Soldat. And it got him. Very nice.
Real quick, before you move on from this video, go back to the beginning and pause it at the beginning near the video. I want to see something here. Interesting. That computer must have been donated by America or something like that, because it's got American writing at the bottom of it and everything, and I was curious when I looked at it, but I thought it said something else, but it just looks like it says PCU system or something like that. It looks like a tough book.
Well, Matthew, the Switchblade is an American system after all, so this may be the interface.
Comes with the computer?
I suppose so, maybe.
Oh, that'd be pretty nice. It's a pretty loaded out one. It's got an i7.
Yeah, I mean, it's got an i7 to operate a one-time drone. Pretty cool, though. I like it. I like it. But moving on from that little bit of news, and moving on into our next clip near the Avdiivka area, we also got to see some Russian soldiers being taken prisoner by the 3rd Brigade. First, we all know there's an obligatory shout-out to the AK-74 with a 40-round detachable mag. Do y'all know how rare those are even in the Ukrainian military, not just in the collector sphere? 40-round mags are just quite rare, because usually 30 rounds is considered to be sufficient. So they just make a massive amount of 30-round mags. Seeing a 40-round mag anywhere is a miracle. And it's crazy to see that this Ukrainian soldier is absolutely bringing the heat with a 40-round mag. Nuts.
Пидорас, вылазь! Выползаешь аккуратно лицом ко мне! Быстро, сука! Если не будешь ничего делать, бля, выйди живым, понял меня? Я тебе базарю нахуй, не дай бог, дернешься, бля, я тебя на тот свет отправлю, ясно? Дядя, ты понял, куда ты попал уже? Ты попал в третью ШБ, дурак, нахуй.
Now see the
Я
moving them
говорил,
out for
быстро двигайся,
processing.
будешь, блядь, медлить, нахуй, я тебя пришью, блядь. Я ебал, сука, тоже здесь лежать. Ебашим, все, погнал. Малюк, максимально швыд. Пидор тоже там? Все, парни, давай нахуй не ссы, все будет заебись, блядь. Через поле, ліворуч від БМП, як прийняв. Хуйня осталась, вот там наши пацаны, давай. Пошел, 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 пошел. Смотри, блядь, раненый где уже, блядь, находится. А ты, блядь, тащится. Так у него, блядь, рука и колени прохуярен. Бы хотел тебя убить, нахуй, я убил бы тебя там же. Но так как ты обоссанный вылазишь, ну, блядь, я все-таки, блядь, воин чести, нахуй. Убить тебя, блядь, не дает никакого, нахуй, преимущества, правильно? Если, нахуй, ты в плотном бою умираешь, тогда ты воин, а так ты, нахуй. Это хуета все. Потому что вы, сука, сколько кентов моих убили, это пизда просто. Все, кто, блядь, русский, любой, который взял оружие, блядь, Я считаю, что он убил моего товарища, друга, нахуй, брата. Похую, блядь. Вот за что ты приехал воевать? Скажи вот так, попросту. За что? Заставили. Заставили? Да ты пиздишь, нахуй, вы все одни и то же говорите, блядь. Ну как вас могут заставить? Вот я пришел, блядь, добровольно, нахуй. Когда вы ворвались, блядь, в мою страну, я пришел добровольно, блядь. Ну как можно заставить человека? Тихо, тихо. А пленный, да?
We now see them loading the Russians into the back of the Humvee, and then the video clip ends. But nice to see the 3rd Brigade continuing to do some great work in the area of Avdiivka and taking Russian prisoners. So much for the Ukrainians collapsing. But what do I know? Moving on from that, we also got to see the 3rd Brigade attacking a Russian artillery battery of D-30s and D-20s overnight in the area. We're going to be muting that. And when you see them highlighting the Russian targets down there on the ground, and getting ready to put them down, there's the D-30, and here comes the drone, and there goes the D-30. And here comes another drone, and there goes another D-30. And here comes another D-20, and there goes another drone. I'm absolutely confused how the sequence now goes when I'm saying that, but we can see them destroying 4 artillery systems, and overall, an absolutely great day. By all measures, by all accounts, an incredible day. Moving on from that, and out of the Avdiivka battlefield, it's time for us to move further on down and into the area of Novomikhailivka, where we got to see some Russians getting hit by a drone today.
On a quad bike?
On a quad bike. Or a 4-wheeler, if you want to call it that. And there they go, just riding around. And we see that the Shadow Money Wizard Gang is about to knock him out. Shadow Money Wizard Gang, we love casting spells.
Oh, man, they came down at a strange angle on him.
Ooh.
Oh, that fireball, that must have been the gas that exploded with it.
I guess you could say those Russians were a little gassy.
I gassed them up.
Aw, man, this is straight gas. But that's
I love it when people smoke gas. Like, it's great. It's great for the fella.
It's great for the lungs. But moving on from that and into Novomikhailivka, we also got to see a Russian tank getting blown up in the fields today. It already got blown up at the literal beginning of the clip, but here's the clip. And we're going to have to mute the Chad music that's coming in. When you see the tank, now trying to work with what's happened to it. What happened? And when you see it moving forward with this mine plow in front of it, trying to clear the way. But alas, it won't be clearing the way, for things are about to go south very quickly. Uh-oh. What happened back there? Apparently didn't do its job well enough. Looks like the MTLB that was following it got knocked out, and it did. It is smoking, and it's being abandoned. Remember, folks, smoking krills. And we can see that MTLB continuing to cook. And that's the end of the clip. But beautiful.
Pigeon Forge, if you want to donate to the drone fund. Pigeon Forge, just like Edinburgh.
Moving on from there, we got to see another Russian tank that got finished off today. Yeah, we're going to be muting that, but we can see the drone bomblet being dropped in. You know why I did that
song? I forgot.
Yeah,
I almost forgot about that song.
I heard that stupid riff at the beginning. I went, "Oh no!" I was like, I can't even hear that. Like, it's not that it's copyrighted. I hate that song. It's just so stupid sounding. Like,
Let's hear just a bit.
Oh yeah, let's. Okay, so for some reason there's
not that one.
But it's like on the same like track though. I'm not gonna lie. But you see the Russian tank blowing up off in the distance. Ooh, that thing actually turned into a crater. Ooh. Oh. Toasty. Period. And that's the end of that clip. And once again, Pigeon Forge up on the email. But with that, we're now moving on into our next little clip, where we also got to see another Russian vehicle getting destroyed, or several of them for that matter, by the 79th Air Assault Brigade, which is still holding Avdiivka. Alright, now we're muting that. And we see the Russians just getting hit. Kind of like Nero Kativo got hit in the live chat and banned for good. Oh! And we see the next ATGM going in for the next Russian tank and hitting it kind of hard.
Oh, was that artillery that was flying over that way?
I don't really know. I was staring at that the whole time, like, what is that? I have no idea what it was.
Yeah. It was pretty like smooth and like straight on a trajectory to be like you know, something else.
Oh, that MTLB just got hit.
And those guys got smoked like salmon.
Man, smoked like a hot dog. Man,
we let him cook.
Let him cook.
Don't let the hot dog man cook though, because he'll cook himself a little too done.
And it was worth it.
No, son, it was not worth
Wait,
it.
how the hell? Wait,
Fix yourself.
How the hell did a 9-ton MTLB end up running itself up a tree? How in the world do you even do that? That's got to be the strongest tree on Earth for that to happen.
It's either Tony or it's a American Mustang driver. It's one or the other.
American Mustang driver. It's got a high probability.
Very possible. But I think they might have gone for the crowd of Ukrainians before they went for the tree.
That's true. No, they actually would have gone for the crowd of Russians, because it's always blue on blue with the Mustang drivers.
Yes, facts, actually.
No, so you made me think of that stupid GTA clip you showed me of the meme of every Mustang driver, and the Mustang went, like, bobbing up and down into the fence, and then went flying through in front of you or something. But anyways, moving on from the area of Avdiivka, the Ukrainians hold strong. But you know what's even stronger? Ukrainian anti-tank mines. I cannot show this clip on stream. I literally put a caption on this thing saying, "Do not show," meaning I can't show y'all what's in the clip. I hate to say that, because I would love to show it to y'all. It's wild. To explain it a little bit, it was a Russian Jeep. It was like a UAZ 469 without the top, and they were moving towards Novoprokopivka, and they ended up setting off a TM62 anti-tank mine with the Jeep, pretty much, and it was a mental clip. I can't show it to y'all here on the stream. YouTube would simply forbid that. So if y'all want to see it, click on the link in the description below to the Day 742 map, which you can then go click on the link there and go watch it, but sadly I can't show it here. But moving on from that and down into the area of Krynky, we got to see today that the Ukrainians were able to destroy a Russian T-62M that was in the area. Huge credit to the 36th Marine Brigade that made this possible as they hit the trap. Much like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo loves traps, the Ukrainians also like trap music. Like Zoink Scoob, that beat be hitting, raggy, gritty. But anyways, you can see them dropping the bomblets onto the tanks, slamming them pretty nicely.
Kaltenberg said, "Hey, I drive a Mustang GT." Oh, Kaltenberg, you're one of the 1% of Mustang drivers that hasn't run into a tree or a crowd or something, because it seems like the Mustang drivers can't keep the car in a straight line to save their life. So you're unique.
You're one of the few, the proud. That's almost like the Marine slogan. But anyways, that's the end of the clip. Nice to see the T-62M exploded and was destroyed by the Ukrainians. And it's now time for us to move up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. Hopefully we have one today, considering he probably wasn't able to make one, considering he was under an attack today. But he made one. What the hell? That's actually kind of wild. He actually found the time to make a speech, a 2-minute and 30-second one. Not long, but he still made one, even after he almost died today. That's some dedication right there. Almost like our dedication to running this stream. But, without further ado, here is the speech. Peach!
Українці, українки, сьогодні в Одесі зустріч з прем'єр-міністром Греції разом вшанували пам'ять загиблих від удару російського шахеда 2 березня. Діти, дорослі, цими днями відбулись церемонії прощання. Вічна пам'ять усім жертвам російського терору. Головним питанням на перемовинах з прем'єр-міністром Греції була, звичайно, наша оборона, наші можливості в активних діях та у захисті ППО. Безумовний пріоритет, як і в перемовинах з іншими партнерами. Систем ППО та можливості виробляти зброю для захисту у світі достатньо. Зброя потрібна тут, щоб рятувала життя людей. Рішення потрібні зараз, не колись, а для людей, які щодня і щоночі витримують терористичні атаки. Тільки за минулу ніч, тільки проти Одеси було 20 шахедів. Сьогоднішній ранок чергова ракетна атака проти міста. Є поранені, є загиблі. Потрібно більше захисту. Я говорив сьогодні з прем'єр-міністром Греції Міцотакісом про те, як тут на півдні України можна посилити наших людей. Будуть перемовини із іншими державами та лідерами. Ми дуже цінуємо кожен прояв допомоги. Провів сьогодні оперативну нараду з місцевими керівниками, обласною владою, також урядовцями, щоб надали всю необхідну допомогу людям, які втратили житло від російських ударів, втратили документи. Потрібно, щоб це була достатня допомога і швидка. Я вдячний усім, хто підтримує людей зараз, кожному, хто допомагає, хто береже тут в Одесі, в усіх наших містах максимум нормального життя. Нічого Росія не має здобути своїм терором. Я дякую всім, хто б'ється заради наших людей і держави. Я дякую кожному і кожній, хто працює заради України та в Україні. Я дякую Одесі, усім, хто береже нашу Одесу, хто захищає місто, усім, хто працює в місті, забезпечує робочі місця для людей. Дякую кожному у світі, хто допомагає. Ми обов'язково вистоїмо, захистимо нормальне життя. Слава Україні!
And
Herom Slava.
And with
He's
that,
looking pretty good for somebody that almost got smacked with a missile today. Like, he's acting more energized than usual.
well, I bet you almost dying would put a pep in your step too. I mean, it would put a pep in my step. I'm not gonna lie. I'd be like, dang, I almost died. I actually don't feel that bad. But with that, that is the end of the speech today from President Volodymyr Zelensky, and that brings us on into the second segment of this stream where we get to talk to all of y'all about whatever y'all want to talk about. We get to literally talk, like, I mean this every night. We really do get to talk about everything. And I just want people to know that, because if y'all want to talk about history, if y'all want to talk about bread, or, you know, whatever, if y'all want to talk about it, we'll talk about it. I'm all for it, because this is the moment where we kind of get to sit back and chit chat about the war, some questions about the war maybe, but kind of just, you know, all sit around together and just get to talk. So with that, we have to, of course, address some of the top questions that we've been asking y'all tonight before we get into that. But once we do that, we're going to be moving on into the questions and getting to talk to each and every one of y'all about whatever y'all want to talk about. And I have to stress that it's whatever. So if you're here right now and I sit here and see you say in 15 minutes, what about the news? I will ban. Like, tonight, it will happen, because I'm making it very clear. We are not in the news segment anymore. We are in the free-for-all segment, and y'all deserve that. I have talked for an entire hour and 45 minutes about the news of what's going on inside of Ukraine. And so, for all of those people who have made it an entire hour and 50 minutes nearly watching the news, y'all get to talk about whatever y'all want. And I'm more than happy to talk about any topic. As long as it's not a political one, we can talk about anything. And so, I owe it to y'all. We owe it to y'all. Y'all owe it to yourselves. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so we do have a poll left to address, and the question on it says, analysts expect major military provocations from North Korea in March, which is this month, and war is possible. And what are your thoughts? It looks like 39% said it is possible, but it's unlikely. 32% said it's coming, North Korea wants war, and 21% said North Korea will never move on South Korea. And in my opinion, I would rule out that fourth option. I think North Korea will eventually, inevitably invade South Korea at some point. It's just a matter of time, because the North Korean regime is basically like a ticking time bomb, in my opinion. Their whole regime basically is based upon the hatred of the West and their neighbor, which is South Korea. And eventually they will have to make a move on them of some type of a major move, like a escalation into a war. And I don't think it's going to be forever that we see peace between the two countries, or at least a sort of stalemate type of peace for the moment. But to say that North Korea is going to start a war this month, I wouldn't go that far. I would say that maybe in the next few years or something like that, but not exactly in the next couple of weeks. But Enforcer, what say you?
It's unbelievably, Matthew. This is something that is completely 180 in the Korean Peninsula compared to the rest of the world. North Korea is actually entirely possible of launching a full-scale war within the next few weeks. They always are, as a matter of fact. They've been that way since the end of the Korean War. North Korea's military is at a constant state of mobilization and readiness. Nearly a quarter of their entire population is in the North Korean military right now. It's insane when you put that into mind, because they really can, at least within those first few weeks, actually conduct a full scale war, and then probably fall apart beyond that. But that's something to think about. That they're starting to once again seriously talk about major escalations. But I have to calm everyone down for a minute. They do this quite often. They've been doing this for decades. It comes around every few years. It came around in the best way I could say this, it came around in the last administration, the administration before that, the administration before that, the administration before that. It's been an endless thing. And every single presidency has actually had a slightly different way of dealing with it. Some presidents are actually very heavy-handed in their policy to the North Koreans, and pretty much emphasize the stick and completely remove the carrot. Other people try and get North Korea to be more amicable by giving them nothing but the carrot and very little stick, or no stick at all. But regardless of the stance that America takes diplomatically to the North Koreans, it's just never enough. I mean, there's no actual good way to deal with the North Koreans, realistically, because we've seen people use nothing but carrot and nothing but stick and everything in between the carrot and the stick, and nothing really works to actually appease the North Koreans. Well, not just appease them, but to shut them up and to make them happy with their situation. And going off of that, I have a feeling that this is another attempt at seeing if right now the diplomatic conditions are favorable, that if North Korea throws a tantrum, they get a little bit of the carrot. And we know that they're in a kind of a situation where they'd want some carrot because they're currently in the middle of another great famine, and that's why they're trading weapons with the Russians for food stores, so that way they can try and stave off this famine as best they can. So I'd have to be very honest. I don't think a major conflict is going to be happening. Of course, there's a good leeway to be completely wrong about that, but I have a feeling it's probably not going to happen, and this is another attempt by the North Koreans to get some sort of appeasements or maybe some kind of international support in exchange for them stopping the war rhetoric for the next few months, maybe a year or so. But with that, I hope that does address that well. My honest opinion, just telling y'all what I would do as president, my honest opinion is that if the carrot and the stick doesn't work, just go stick all the way, because it doesn't matter anyways, so might as well just be heavy-handed against the North Koreans and deal with them like they are, a bunch of damn thugs running half of the Korean peninsula. That's the way I treat them, and, I wouldn't really lay off on that at all. I mean, it's their problem that they're having a famine. Maybe if their nation wasn't led by a literal army of fat idiots, maybe they would be able to do a little bit better and figure out not to deprive themselves of all the fertile, farmable, or arable soil that they had in their country back in the 90s. That's not our problem, that's their problem. And if they want to starve their own country, have at it. There's nothing we can do about it. And now that they want to try and create temper tantrums so that we will give them some kind of temporary humanitarian aid, that's just ridiculous. I mean, they can deal with that on their own. Why don't the Chinese and the Russians help them out instead? Because it seems to me that they like to be their friends. Why don't they ask their friends for a little bit of help instead of trying to force our hand to give them some? That's the way I'd look at it. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. I know that sounds a little bit brutal, but honestly, the North Koreans are a brutal people. Well, at least their government is a brutal government, and I believe actually the people of North Korea may be a little bit brutal as well, because they're indoctrinated pretty heavily. And regardless or not, whether we would hope that the North Koreans are a very nice people, we can see that the Russian government has done a very good job in even much more tolerable circumstances indoctrinating a large part of the Russian public. So I would have to believe that the North Korean public is mostly, if not entirely, behind the North Korean government in what they're doing, because they have nothing else to go off of. So why in the world would they be in opposition to the North Korean government? And on top of that, if they are, they get put in camps. So there's a huge incentive to be all for what the North Korean government is doing. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. If you like that opinion, you do. If you don't, hey, I mean, we can agree to disagree, but that's the way I view the Koreans, the North Koreans at the moment. South Koreans, Hey, they're great. I mean, they're exporting their culture. They're making a great deal of money. Everyone's loving their culture. Like if you haven't seen recently, Korean music is wildly popular. Korean films are
K-pop.
wildly popular. Yeah, K-pop is wildly popular. Korean movies, and even like not just like Squid Game, which is probably the biggest one recently, but even just South Korean soap operas and stuff like that, wildly popular. South Korean products are doing very good. Samsung is a massive company, not just in South Korea but around the world. They do great. South Korea, wonderful. Great ally of the United States, amazing friend. North Korea, the complete opposite. And I believe we ought to treat the North Koreans that way. But with that, hope that does address that well. And Matthew, honestly, I feel like it would there a good video idea in the future. And this would be a video that would completely flop, but I'd love to do it, is to talk about every single country that is within the Western sphere and just list off nothing but positives about them and what they contribute to the rest of the Western sphere. Because each one has a...
If you could make it like a rapid fire video, like a one best thing about every country in Europe in under 5 minutes, it would be probably a hit. But anything longer than that, it would probably be a flop.
It probably would be a flop. That would actually be a really cool video to make because there are so many cool things, like maybe like 5 things that you could say about each country that they add to the Western sphere as a whole for every single country in the West, that everyone can recognize and know that that country actually has an impact like that on everyone else. Hell, South Korea and Japan have such a huge impact on a lot of things. It's actually crazy. And every other country does too, like Australia and New Zealand and, hell, everyone else. I mean, not to go through the whole list of everyone in the West, but everyone has a really cool thing to add to the West. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Rob Horvath, who puts in a $50 donation, and thank you very much, Rob, for that very generous support as well. He says, what do you think it's going to take to end the war in Ukraine?
I think it's actually going to take a pretty decisive Ukrainian victory to end the war. The Russians are pretty hell-bent on continuing it now until they economically collapse. So I'd have to say, in regards to that, they're not going to end it unless they just collapse, and then it'll be over anyways. So the Ukrainians are going to have to eventually find a way to push them out or wait for them to collapse. That's really the only 2 ways I can see the war ending, at least at this moment. But with that, I thank you so much for the support and a great question as well. It's a very open-ended question, and open-ended questions are usually answered with simple answers because it's such a complex world. Millions of individual actions every single day determine the outcome of the next day before it even really begins, and then the millions of actions that are taken tomorrow then dictate the next day, and so on. So it's really hard to say in months and years in the future what may happen in the Ukraine war rather than those 2 major umbrella ideas. But I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Wayne Curl, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you very much, Wayne, as well for that support. He says, what is the update with the space launch from Russia, and is it possible to shoot it down?
It's possible to shoot it down. That's not out of the question ever. Well, we could actually shoot down a Russian satellite with an F-15, and it has been done before. The problem, though, is what would be the diplomatic backlash of shooting down a Russian satellite like that? Originally, when we did it with the F-15, the Soviet Union didn't really have that big of a response. It was a very strongly diplomatic letter, but beyond that, it didn't really turn into much. But with this, nowadays, in the kind of volatile situation we're in now, it could be a flashpoint to try and shoot down that Russian nuclear weapon. So it's actually a nuclear-powered satellite, whatever the hell they want to call it. It's a nuclear weapon in orbit. There's no, from what I understand, there are no other nuclear satellites or nuclear-powered satellites in space at the moment. So it was a little bizarre for the Russians to go, calm down, everyone, it's just a nuclear-powered one. It's like, yeah, with a nuclear bomb, I would suppose. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And I hope I was able to address that well, because we can shoot it down. It's just always about what are the diplomatic repercussions. Because if we always just talk about what is possible and what isn't possible, things become very easy. I mean, one thing that's entirely possible is we could steamroll the Russians tomorrow, conventionally, in a war. We could just knock their asses around and there's nothing much they could do about it. But the implication of what that may bring is what stops us from actually doing that. Because the Russians could start a nuclear Armageddon because they would be beaten so badly. There would really be no other option for the Russians except for to try and destroy the West in a nuclear hellfire. And that's what stops us from steamrolling the Russians. So, as a matter of possibility, yes. Matter of what may happen after that, maybe, maybe not. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Michael Harper, who puts in a 20. And thank you, Michael, as well for that support. He says, do you think Australia should send our decommissioned Taipan helicopters to Ukraine? And we're upgrading our Abrams tanks for the newer version, so I think we should donate our old ones to Ukraine also.
I would have to say yes. I think that the Australians should give up the Taipan. And let me make sure I'm correct, Mandy. That was an Australian, correct?
That is Australia sending the decommissioned Taipan helicopters.
Okay, yes. I would agree. Beautiful helicopter, by the way. But I would agree to send these to
Oh, yeah,
Ukraine.
that's nice, man. That's like really modern looking.
It's so angular. You know, I really like that. You know, angular is the new modern. And I really love the look of this thing. How new are these? Wow.
That reminds me of Angela Merkel.
These things were actually introduced in 2007.
Yeah, that was right when the crash happened. What a bad time to release a helicopter.
What a terrible time. What a terrible time.
The sales just tanked.
But I gotta say this though. It is one beautiful looking helicopter, and it's actually used by a decent amount of countries. The Italians, the Germans, the French, and the Spanish all use this helicopter. But I would have to that's the in production model. That's like the prototyping. But let's see here. I want to see. Oh, look, dude, the Dutch ones look wicked with like the is that I can't tell if that's a two-tone paint scheme or a one-tone and it's just the shadow making it look a little darker, but it is such a good-looking helicopter. I can't really get beyond that. Look at this one. This is a Swedish Army version of the helicopter. It looks really good in green.
Swedes. They believe in putting caution tape on it all.
They really do. I mean, good lord, that is enough caution, like, paint job to really get this thing going. This one's really nice. Dude, they're all nice looking. I mean, it's the same helicopter, so obviously, but still. Dang. I just gotta say, really good design. I just can't get over it. It is a beautiful looking design here. This one's Finnish. The Finnish paint scheme looks gorgeous. French. Wow, really everyone uses this thing, honestly, but to answer the question, to get back to the question, should y'all send these to Ukraine? I'd say yeah, because if they're being retired military equipment always has a second life to live. And at that point, a lot of people always go, oh, you know, it's an expensive cost. Well, our government already put forward that cost when we bought the vehicles. It's just a matter of making sure that they can eke out that extra little juice in each vehicle before they're completely expended. So as far as that goes, I would have to say, yeah, why not send them to Ukraine? Let them live that second life that most military vehicles will have, and let them be useful in a conflict that would probably require their use. I mean, imagine, if we give enough transport helicopters to the Ukrainian army, they may actually be able to conduct limited kinds of helicopter operations along the front lines, maybe giving them that extra little bit of flexibility to break through Russian lines in places that they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for the support and a really good question, and also letting us see a beautiful helicopter. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Psyops, who puts in a $20 donation as well. And thank you very much, Psyops, for the support as well. He says, how was my day? He said, I was selected for jury duty. Then the first relationship that I've had since my first died at 17 was an evil, vicious, and cruel bad person. Was homeless for a bit. He says, I'm fine. At least I'm not Russian. And that is true, Psyops. At least you aren't Russian. That is definitely a positive to the situation. But I'm sorry to hear about the other.
And I gotta say, that is great to know that you are not a Russian. That is always a positive at the end of every day. But I hate to hear that all of that's happened, Psyops. That's very unfortunate to hear. And I hope things are getting better for you, because we've been wondering where you were, and we were wondering if you were all right. And I did not know that any of that was happening in the background. But it's good to know that you're back. Welcome back. And thank you so much once again for the support. Beyond that, I really do hate to hear that, and I hope that things are on the up and up for you and they're getting better. But yeah, I mean, you've had a tough time of it, and I hate to hear it. But welcome back, Psyops, and of course, at least you're not a Russian. But thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope things continue, well, not continue in that path, but continue to get better nevertheless. But still, thank you so much once again, and also. Happy birthday to you, because I heard it was your birthday in the live chat. And once again, a great happy birthday to you, and I hope that you're having a great one, all things considered. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next ones, you go to Matt Cheer, who puts in a 10, as well as Heather Fitzgibbon LSA, who also throws in a 10.
Hey!
And I don't see any comments attached to either one, but thank you, Matt and Heather, very much for that support and helping to keep us running. So, Enforcer, what are you saying?
And I gotta say, thank you to Heather and Matt here, both for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. Y'all didn't throw in comments, but the support is always greatly appreciated and helps to make this channel possible. And so thank you to both of y'all once again, because y'all are both legends and old guards who have been around forever. And it means a lot to us that y'all continue to enjoy the channel and find it worthwhile to support. And so thank you to both of y'all once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jack Ray, who throws in a $13 donation and says, keep up the good work.
Hey, and thank you so much, Jack Ray. And we will keep up the good work. And thank you so much for being an absolute legend and being here forever. It is incredible to know that you're still here, Jack Ray, and still enjoying this channel and finding it worthwhile to watch. Not just support, but watch. Because it's honestly crazy to me that we've been running this for 742 days now, and people still find this channel interesting enough to actually watch. Funnily enough, 6,000 people were here live tonight at the peak, finding this channel interesting enough to watch. That just blows us away. What's really blown us away recently is that so many people have been enjoying our streams. Just over the past 3 days alone, every single stream has gotten above 70,000 views. Some of them have gotten almost up to 90,000 views. And that is just crazy to us, that y'all enjoy the channel enough to be able to watch it that much. You know, I really don't know how y'all do that. I really don't, because I would have gotten bored of my own self a while ago. But I'm still honored and completely speechless on y'all's appreciation of this channel. And I gotta thank you, Jack Ray, for being one of those people that leaves me speechless and without even a slightest idea how y'all found me and Matthew to be interesting and enjoyable enough to watch for 742 days. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Anthony Wilson, who throws in a 10 as well.
Hey!
He says, do you think France's commitment to Moldova will be a precursor to them eventually inserting troops into Ukraine? And Slav Ukraine, long live the LSA. And by the way, do you got any plums?
And I'm going to save that last part here in a second, because a lot of people have actually been asking for something specific tonight about the plum deal. And we're actually going to be changing things up a little bit tonight to show it. But to answer the first part and then get to that part second, France's commitment to Moldova is most likely a precursor to French involvement in Ukraine, and it also appears to be a precursor to European involvement in the Eastern European area that isn't a part of the European Union or NATO. I would say that this is certainly going to be before they move troops into Ukraine, so definitely a precursor by all forms of the definition of precursor. And so with that, I hope that does address that part well, and of course, Slav Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army, and we're going to be bringing the marmot on screen. But tonight, we're not going to be going, oh, I know that, or anything like that. Well, I just did it, but we're not going to be doing that because so many people have actually asked tonight. I don't know if you've seen this, Matthew, but there's been a trend in the live chat of people asking to see a real marmot, not the painting. And so I'm actually going to show you what a real marmot looks like. There's actually many different species of the marmot, but this is one of them.
Oh, look at that. Oh, man, what's he thinking about?
Man, what the marmot doing? Oh, for real, for real. Look at that.
Man, he looks like something bad just happened. Like, shit.
Man, this thing looks like it's going to say, my wife just cheated on me. Just sitting up there on that rock. But look at this one. This one's like all smooth looking. Rotund.
Man, it is smooth. It's smooth in the fur, but not quite smooth with the whole thing it's got going on.
And these two are fighting each other.
Man, that one marmot's going to get one over on that other one. Like that one on the left, he's about to scrap Like
Man.
the other one's about to get beat down. I can tell it.
Dude, this one looks like, this one over here on the left looks like it's about to say, I'm gonna break your freaking legs! And this one's like, no, don't do it, don't do it! But let's see what else. And then we got these little baby marmots sleeping on mama marmot. That is cute.
That's a nice marmot. I like that marmot.
And then we got this one. Oh, hello there! that could...
A little bit uniquely British.
What you think I'm from? East London? But anyways, oh, man. But let's see here. What else do we have for the marmots? We got this one eating strawberry, maybe. That one's cute, though. I like that one. That one's
looks like
cute.
a Mrs. Marmot for some reason.
Yeah, it kind of does. It kind of does. And then we got this old marmot.
You've gotten so old, man. I can't even walk. What's my walker? Your cane's not even on the effing ground, man.
Dude, this one right here goes, come on, England! Boom, boom, boom. Score some freaking goals! Oh, man. But let's see here. What else do we have? We got this one eating on something. We got this one. That one's actually pretty chunky. That's actually looking kind of like the painting. I'm not going to lie. You what, mate? Let's see.
Did
What
you
else?
say something offensive to me face? Could you say that again, mate? Oh, you want to scrap?
You just
scrap, mate.
You just assaulted me. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. That looks like it was about to say. This one. I freaking love my life. I love freaking Arsenal. I love Arsenal.
I just
FC.
woke up in the morning, man, and I walked outside. I saw the grass, and I said, there's a wee bit of grass out there. Might have to go and mow it.
Let's see here. Dude, this one. There's demons in the walls.
Man, why's that look like Sid the Sloth over here? What, that in the marmot?
I have no... That's a good point. That thing does not look like one. But let's see here. What else do we have? This one here is you know, like, coming up to the fight. I forgot what that's called, Matthew. What's the phrase for that?
Throwing down, man.
He's freaking throwing down, Governor! And then we got this chunky boy.
Oh.
Goodness.
It says, buy adorable marmot wall print. 72 CAD. What are they, crazy?
Good lord. Well,
Man, get the hell out of here, man. I don't want a picture of a fat marmot for 72 bucks.
all right, listen, Governor, here's how we run the scam, all right? We take a picture of ourselves, and then we go and put it on damn Etsy for 80 quid. Dude, that's what that marmot's telling the other one. It's like, get the camera. We're going to take a picture today. But let's see here. What else? What else do we have? Just a couple of more. Because this is fun in its own way. Let's
Also,
see.
Woodsman said, when you're done looking at marmots, take a look at the lemmings.
Take a look at the lemon. I was like, dude, that's just a fruit.
I was doing the British accent in my mind still, so I said lemon, but I meant lemming.
When you're done looking at some marmots, take a look at a lemon. It's like Lululemon. But oh, dude, this one just snapped on a Lego. They went ah. It's like, yeah, I can feel that one's pain. This is the way that Hot Dog Man be looking at the subscriber number drop.
Oh dear.
Oh.
I just lose 300? Am I seeing things? It must be the smoke.
Hashtag worth it.
Hashtag 420, blaze it, baby.
Oh man, and this is Enforcer Matt and me with the Lee
Whoa,
Spring.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
No. With the towards the Lee Spring Army, giving a flower of compassion and love to all of y'all. Matthew, you cut it off before I get to the other part. But with that,
I don't know, man. I'm a little bit weirded out about that one. Let's just skip that one.
That one is kind of weird though. Now that I look at it, but you know, we're just gonna take it as a wholesome thing. And then finally, the last one, this cute one called Junkie Marmots. This one apparently is from Minnesota. But with that, it is time for us to move on from Junkie Marmots. Why in the world did I sound like Bald and Bankroll right there, man? I said, it's time for us to move on from Junkie Marmots. That's it, and move on to the next thing. But moving on from that, it's time for us to get on to other things people are talking about. But nevertheless, I do thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because folks like you help us to keep this thing running. And if it wasn't for folks like you, Anthony Wilson, we wouldn't be able to talk about marmots. And with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And Pyro's Box, it sounded like we did in the 3rd grade. Got banned. Well, it's the question segment. We can sound like whatever the hell we want. But with
He's
that,
been getting rather saucy all night, man. He's been in here saying, I hope you're never president. He said, I also think you sound like a goof. He also said, it sounds like a bunch of third graders in here. And I said, ban him. It sounds like the sound of silence in here, man. Silence.
you know, what the devil comes over people, possesses them so, to come in here and say such vile things. I don't say anything about that man right there. I don't say anything saucy about him. Why must he come in here and say stuff saucy about us? I'm only running a show, trying to keep you entertained, keep people interested in a war. You know, the people are dying over there, trying to, help lighten things up. And what do? You unappreciative bastard? You come in here and start cussing at us? What is wrong with you, boy? What is wrong with you? Grow up. Grow up. I've grown up. That's why I'm able to act like this. You can ask people in real life. I'm serious when I need to be. Clown when I can be. And this is one of the places that we can be clown. So shut the hell up. But anyways, moving on from that, thank you so much once again, Anthony Wilson, for the support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Cliff H, who puts in a $10 donation and says, Marmot time. The Fly tries to convince Marmot that Russia has Black Sea supremacy.
Now we have to actually go to the painting. So hang on, everyone. It is Marmot night. And we're going to get another Pyro Sparks here going, it sounds like we're in 3rd grade. It sounds like we're in the question segment to me. Cope. It's like, just live with it. Out of there. Hey, it's Marmot time, baby. All right. So, Matthew, do you want to do the script? How are we going to do the script so that way we don't fit it like we did last night?
I'm going to let you take this one. It's the Fly trying to convince the Marmot that Russia has Black Sea supremacy.
The Black Sea Fleet, it's invincible. All those Russian ships destroyed. Green screens. The West, they're trying to lie to you. Oh man,
What the hell are you talking about? They're all dead. They're all freaking dead. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed that because that's all I could come up with.
That was a short one.
Yeah, it was like a TikTok short. It's like just 20 seconds. But with that, I hope you did enjoy that, Cliff H. I had to stop because I actually started getting wheezy because I expelled so much air screaming. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for support, Cliff H, and being a channel legend. And I hope you enjoyed the real Marmot. I know the Marmots are like a real thing, but the one on the painting is real to me. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Andy L, who says, Enforcer, Russia has their Wagner mercs. France has the Foreign Legion. And what would happen if the Legion went into Ukraine or Moldova?
It would be taken as an official act by the French, unlike the Wagner being an unofficial arm of the Russians, because the French Foreign Legion isn't necessarily a mercenary group. The French Foreign Legion is a unit that has existed in the French army since 1831 to allow foreign nationals into the French army. So unlike the Wagner, which was a step removed from the Russian army and was a group unto itself, the French Foreign Legion is actually a part of the French army, a lot like the Ukrainian Foreign Legion is an actual part of the Ukrainian army and is not a group that is one step removed from Ukraine. So in reality, it would actually be taken as actions of the French. It would pretty much be the same as bringing in an actual unit of Fusiliers, which are kind of standard French infantry, to deal with the situation, because they're really viewed one and the same. They're both a part of the French army. So I hope that does address that quite well, because a lot of people think, because the Foreign Legion of France is called the Foreign Legion, that's not really a part of the French army, but it definitely is. It is completely a part of the French army, and has been used that way since 1831 all the way up until the present day. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And also, I've shown you a little bit of the drip of the French Foreign Legion, but I also have to show y'all something cool about the French Foreign Legion. Let me see if they have it here on... Let's see here. Let me see here. Dang, they really don't... They don't have what I'm looking for. Oh, wait a minute. What? Wait, did they replace the FAMAS with an HK-416?
That would be sick.
Why in the world do your mic sound so weird right there? I just heard, that would be sick. I was like, what the hell happened to
Because
this
my
mic?
desk was going down and I had sat down in my chair already, so my mic was about 5 feet above my head.
So I be damned, Matthew. They got rid of the FAMAS in the French army in 2017 and are now going with the HK-416 as the service rifle of the whole French army.
That's a smart move. I think they weren't they using the Beretta rifle of some sort a while back.
I don't think
It was like
so.
a Beretta rifle of some sort. There was some fancy one that was in Call of Duty and all that stuff. The Beretta, I forgot the name of it.
From what I know, their service rifle up till then was this thing, the FAMAS.
Let's see. France Beretta rifle. Let's see what we have. The not the BRX, it's the ARX 160. That's the Beretta that I'm talking about. Those in Call of Duty. I think they used that for a while. Let's see. ARX 160. No. That was Italy's service rifle. My bad. I got them mixed up.
This thing is god awful.
Oh, the ARX?
Yeah, look at that thing. It's ugly.
I mean, I thought it was pretty cool back in the day, but now that I know a little bit more about firearms, it's not that great looking.
Dude, this thing is a chunky little boy right here. This thing is Mr. Lunchtime in gun form. Like, let me look at this. How much does this thing weigh? 6.6 pounds. It's got to be made entirely of plastic then, because this thing is huge. It's using a normal 5.56 Stanek mag. Just a standard 5.56 mag. So, yeah, I mean, this thing is chunky. Because look how much of the...
It's being sold by some guy called Russian Eagle, too.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Just what do you know? Would you look at that? And also, they apparently introduced the ARX 200, which can fire 7.62 by 51. Yeah, I wouldn't want this thing. Yeah, that is just ugly. I don't like it much.
It's a clunker, I think.
Yeah, I don't know about y'all, but I think the Italians kind of missed with this thing. It looks like a Nerf gun, like Tor Karis is Human said. I think it's a Nerf gun looking kind of a deal. Here's the Albanians using them. Yeah, I don't like them. The HK-416 is wicked though, but this thing, no, not so much. But with that, and also, by the way, I know a lot of people are going to be like, it's not about the looks. I know, it's really more so about the performance of the rifle. But, on this channel, really trying to quickly skirt over things, we can really only look at the aesthetics of the weapon without going into a deep dive and having to read books about them. And in my opinion, that thing is dog ugly. And I wouldn't get one if I had the option. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well about the service weapons of the French. Somehow we got all the way down that rabbit hole just talking about Andy L wanting to know what would happen to the French Foreign Legion in Moldova or Ukraine. But I hope I was able to answer that a lot earlier on because I think I did by saying that it is a part of the French army. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Andy L, and being an absolute channel legend and helping this channel to keep running. You've been here often helping to support this channel and keep it rolling, and I appreciate you so much for doing that again tonight. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
And the next one goes to Richard Philpott, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Richard, for that support. He says, I sold the old Jeep today, and I heart my Subaru. I gotta say, one of the sickest Subarus out there. Now, I don't know which one you have, but the WRX is a really, really cool looking car. It's got those rally roots to it, and a really, really cool car to modify as well. And to be honest with you, I think there's another one. I think there's a BRZ or something like that. It's another like two-door little sports car that Subaru makes. Very cool little cars. I say little, but the WRX is a four-door and it has like 350 horsepower. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, Richard, I don't blame you at all for getting rid of your Jeep. I'm not really a big fan of modern Jeeps. I like the Jeeps from World War II. Let me see, Jeep. Wait, hang on. Jeep, GPW. Yeah, that's one I like right there. Let me go over here and let me see if I can get y'all a picture of this little fella. Yeah, I like these. No, I like these. The Jeep GPWs. And we can see that apparently
those are pretty cool. Oh, used oil in the oil pan, man. That's for cooking. That's not for real oil. That's why I got confused.
But nevertheless, these Jeeps are cool. I think they're really the only Jeeps worth getting. Rather than the Mutts, the M151s, which are like a light modification on this thing. But I like these because they're almost like ATVs, nearly. They're about that size, actually. They're very small. They're a quarter of a ton, so they're 500 pounds. It's just cool, too. And I mean, it could get up to about 40 miles per hour. They're just neat through and through. But modern Jeeps, to me, just missed the mark. Like, they missed the mark of what a Jeep is. Especially the Jeep Wrangler. Because I've been able to ride in the Jeep Wrangler, and the road noise that comes off of those things is unholy. Like, it is impossible to even talk to anyone inside of a Jeep because it's just so loud. Also, another
It just depends what kind of tires you got on it. If you add like off-road suspension and huge knobby like off-road tires on a Jeep, that absolutely destroys like the ride quality and also the sound.
Yeah, well, I mean, like it's horrendously loud. I mean, incredibly loud, and I don't really enjoy riding in Jeeps. I mean, from my experience of Jeeps, I don't really like riding in them because they're just not fun. Now, I have been able to like sit down in one of these and ride around them. They're actually really cool because they actually handle a lot like a modern ATV. And that's why I like them. You can actually find these things online for like $25,000 to $40,000 in varying conditions. But the $25,000 minimum mark will get you a running Jeep, just that it may have some mechanical issues. $40,000 will pretty much get you a mint condition, perfect running order Jeep. But you also have to keep in mind that these Jeeps back in the day were not made for massive amounts of mileage. These things end up actually wearing down really quickly with a very low amount of mileage because they weren't ever made to survive that long. It was expected that they'd probably fall apart or they'd just be able to go get replacements because it's the Army and it's World War II, so they never made them to last long. So they run into a decent amount of mechanical issues, and you've always got to keep a good eye out on pretty much everything that moves or has a moving part inside of one of these GPWs. But nevertheless, still really cool. And these are the only Jeeps that I like. Every other one, I mean, they're all right. So I would say, hey, good job on the Subaru. Subaru is one of those Japanese companies that make good cars, and Japan is made for Japan is known for making very reliable and very economical modern cars, and I would say good on you. I love to hear it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a $7 donation and says, I can't listen now, but I have the stream on and in the background on silent because you are both the best and for the corgi's treats.
Oh, and thank you so much, Margaret Hemsley. I hate to hear that you can't listen right now, but I'm glad to hear that you do have the stream on in the background. And thank you so much for saying we're both the best and wanting some treats for our corgis, our precious baby corgis. I petted them today and petted them so, and they're just so sweet. Love those corgis to death. Little Sheba just sits around on the floor in the kitchen waiting for someone to drop something for her to eat. And Mr. Corgi lays on couches all the time. But we love those dogs to pieces. And I got to thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because folks like you, Margaret Hemsley, make it possible for those little baby dogs to have sweet little treats here and there. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Carrie Ann Corzo, who puts in a 5 and says, according to the National Gallery of Art, the marmot may be, in fact, be a groundhog. And this was shocking news for Nick and I. And did you guys know?
Yes.
I didn't know, actually. I didn't know.
We did know. The marmot.
We did?
Yes. The marmot is actually, and let me make sure. Let me make sure exactly. Other names for marmot, because I've always thought, like the whole time we've been showing that thing, that it's a groundhog, and I believe, let's see, yellow-bellied marmot. Wait, hang on. Apparently, I might have been wrong. Are marmots groundhogs? So. Okay, so there actually is a difference in between a groundhog and a marmot. I actually thought the entire... I'm actually learning a little bit about taxonomy right here. I actually thought the entire time that marmots and groundhogs were the same. And apparently they're actually different. The groundhog is a solitary animal, and marmots, from what we're seeing on Critter Control, are social animals that live in colonies. So there is a actual difference in the way groundhogs and marmots live. I didn't know that. I actually thought they were one and the same because they look very similar to each other, at least to me. But let's listen to the sound of a groundhog.
Well, that sounds like it's not what I would have expected.
Now let's hear the sound of a marmot. Okay, the marmot makes no noise. It is a perfectly silent killing machine, so no noise from the marmot, but here's another noise from the groundhog.
Sounds like a damn bird.
It actually does. You know what it actually sounds like, Matthew? It sounds like a truck that's trying to start up and it can't.
If your truck sounds like that, just go ahead and put it down.
Just put that thing down. Just get out the gun and just start shooting into the engine block. But with that, I hope that does address that well, because apparently it may actually be a groundhog, because it doesn't look at all like a marmot. And let's type in groundhog and let's see what the groundhogs look like, because maybe it is supposed to be a groundhog. Oh, great heavens!
Oh, hey, bro.
Dude, this thing is not saying, hey, bro. This thing's going, boy, you got a quite all in that there engine. Man, oh, man, look at this thing. I mean, this is different. Look at that.
Have you ever considered going to the dentist?
Have you ever put butter on a Pop-Tart? Oh, my God. Oh, dude. Honestly, groundhogs are hideous compared to marmots.
Groundhogs.
Yeah, can't even give this thing a proper name. It's groundhog. That thing is just ugly. Ew. Look at that one.
That is pretty rough.
Yeah, that is rough.
Oh, that one. Oh, man.
Oh, my God.
Oh. Cletus, did you put that belt in that truck?
You
no,
stop.
I didn't. Stop it.
You stop right there, damn it. you don't come any closer. But, oh. So I would actually have to say maybe it is a groundhog, because the marmot painting doesn't look like a marmot. I think it actually does look a little bit more like a groundhog, because it's just uglier than a marmot. But with that, I hope that just addressed that well. I didn't know that, actually, because I thought the groundhog and the marmot were one and the same. They're different, actually, and the groundhog's uglier. So I actually, that's news to me too, Carrie Ann, and I thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for supporting the channel and letting us know a little bit of a fact. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the... Also, Sax2 said, no marmots in the UK, so why the Mockney accent? I don't know. Like, we just picked it up one day and ran with it. I'm so sorry, Sax2. I hope I say this enough. Absolutely love Britain. It's a great country, beautiful place. The only country...
From there.
Yeah, we're from there, and it's the only country I've been to outside the United States. A really great place. But nevertheless... no place is free of ridicule here on this channel for a good joke. I will make fun of Americans, I will make fun of British people, I will make fun of Germans, Russians, Ukrainians, Japanese people, South Koreans, anyone and everyone. No one's safe on this channel from a good joke. So, I don't know why we do that accent, but it just stuck and we run with it. So sorry about that, Section, because I know you're one of our British viewers, but please bear with us, because you can see that the groundhog actually got an American redneck accent. I hope that kind of evens out everything. But with that, I hope that does address that. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from our man, Confarelli. And thank you very much, Confarelli, for that support. And also, shout out to our Alabama viewers. He says, can we please refer to the marmot as Alan from now on? If you know the video I'm referencing.
I do. That's it. Do you know the video he's referencing, Matthew?
I actually don't.
You don't? Okay, so it was two marmots.
Don't.
I don't. But it was a video of two marmots, and they were screaming at each other, and there was a whole like skit that they had come up with. Like one of the marmots was going, Alan! Alan! You know, I'm just gonna pull it up. Let me just go pull it up, because I'm sure we can play it. So let me go over here and grab it. Marmot Alan. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so hopefully this isn't anything.
Heard it.
Let's see. Okay, so here we go. This is the clip. I'm just gonna play this one, and it ought to get the joke across, because I know what Confarelli's getting at.
Do you like that? Who's that, Alan?
Alan! Al! Alan!
I don't think you can hear me, you know.
Alan! 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 Al! Alan! Alan!
That's the video.
Did he ever find Alan?
Yes. Yes, in the long
Wait,
form
look at this unhinged description on this video too. I didn't know what it was. Who the F am I? David Attenborough. What the hell? Wow, this guy, damn, this was uploaded 14 years ago.
At the birth of YouTube, pretty much.
Wow.
Good Lord.
And the dude's only gotten 215 subs over all that time. Like, geez, man, they've been like, he's got 389,000 views.
Man,
get the man some subs, man. He's probably not even on YouTube anymore.
Probably not. You know what? I'm gonna take this off screen and check. Let's see if they're still active. The last thing they put on YouTube was a sad 6 years ago. Oh.
Damn, so they've been gone for a while.
Yes. The first thing oh my lord, dude, this account is a gem. The first video they ever put out on YouTube was 17 years ago.
Damn, they've been here for a good minute.
I was like 5 or 6 years old.
They got screwed over too. Like they were here first, but they didn't get the benefit of being here first. They kind of like got screwed when it comes to the sub situation.
I think most people may have just unsubscribed over time. You know, it was maybe something like that. Because you know, when channels go inactive, people do unsubscribe, and you know, especially if you've been inactive for like 6 years, I bet you lose most of the subscribers by that point. But beyond that, I have to say, Confarelli, that is going to be the name of the marmot from now on. We are going to call the marmot Alan! 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 But still, thank you so much once again for support. And thank you, Confarelli, for being an absolute legend. Another one of the Elite Spring Army viewers that I met in person and actually has a very interesting connection to this channel. I will be making sure, hopefully here in the near future, to drop by and say hey to all of you folks down there. Y'all know where I'm talking about. Y'all know where y'all are at. But I'll make sure to drop down and say hello, hello. And also see what's going on around there, because I haven't seen y'all in a while. Maybe like 6 months, maybe. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you for being a channel legend and also a great friend. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to the old buzzard who puts in a 5 and says, Ukraine is savings, the U.S. taxpayers' money, than any pending amount of aid. The Pentagon is rethinking some of expensive stuff on the horizon.
And I gotta thank you so much for the support, old buzzard. Oh, you old buzzard, you. And I gotta say that, yes, I would say that Ukraine is saving the U.S. taxpayer a lot in the long run. A lot of people don't get that because they're not seeing the potential future costs of a larger war. But it is entirely true that this war can evolve, well, really the situation in Eastern Europe can evolve into a full-on conventional war, which will not only be completely destructive to the Northern Hemisphere, but also will be prohibitively expensive and very costly for America to fight. So putting the money into Ukraine is a really cheap way of dealing with the situation before we have to deal with it. Of course, sadly, a lot of people don't look at it that way, but I hope people do, because it is a very good way, and it's an accurate way to look at things, especially off of a historical precedent. But thank you so much once again for support, you old buzzard, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running, because people like you help to make it possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to The Planet is Dying. Very dramatic as usual. Who puts in the 5 and says, thank you for the updates, guys. And also, Carl put in a 5 as well and did not leave a comment. But thank you very much to The Planet is Dying and Carl for that support. But Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you both to Carl and The Planet is Dying for both of y'all's support. Carl didn't throw in a comment, but The Planet is Dying said thank you for the updates, guys, and thank you for enjoying our updates. We put a lot of effort into them, both in the middle of the day and here on these streams, and I thank y'all so much for appreciating them and finding them to be worthwhile, that you would want to support this channel to see us to continue on. What is crazy is that the video update from yesterday, which is now roughly about 24 hours old. Actually, it's close to a day and 8 hours old. Ended up getting 193,000 views, just 7,000 short of a 200,000 view video. That is mental to us, absolutely crazy, and we'd love to know that so many people actually enjoyed that video, because that's really all we do it for, is just so that way people can get the news and really enjoy the way it's delivered. And so many people did, and I thank you so much for being one of those people. The Planet is Dying and supporting the channel, so that way we can continue to make those videos possible. And so thank you so much once again, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Philip Fixes LSA, who says Control+F is fine in Page on browsers, and useful for efficient rabbit holing. And also, you can use in the subscriber page to see who's old guard, and a live chat, please.
Thank you so much for sharing so many technical things with us. Thank you so much, Philip Fixes. It's very appreciative. And I have to say, also, let's see. let's see. Oh, yeah, I think I do know the Control F thing. I was having to read it to make sure I was understanding it correctly. But I do think I know about the Control F thing, but for some reason my brain just will never process actually using it. Beyond that, I will hopefully find a way eventually to figure out who's old guard and not, because you have to be publicly subscribed to the channel for us to even have a chance of figuring out when people subscribed, or, you know, or when they may have first started watching. Hopefully that was the day they subscribed. But still, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Philip Fixes. And also, we will make sure to get a live chat. And so what do we got, Matthew?
And the live chat question is going to go to Magic Forest, who says, would Moldova be open to invasion from the Black Sea?
Moldova would not be open to invasion from the Black Sea because Russia would have to land on Ukrainian shores, which is now completely impossible because the Russian Black Sea Fleet has been so heavily degraded in ability. They would then have to fight their way through Ukraine and to Moldova and then start the war in Moldova from there. So, in all honesty, it would be next to impossible for Moldova to be invaded from the sea, from what I understand. But of course, I can be a little wrong. But I'm having a feeling on this one, I'm most likely right. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, CK Bold orders the regular 5 and says, take a live chat question. And CK Bold's live chat question goes to Keith Rule, who says, do you think the war would end if Putin was gone, or would a Putin replacement continue it?
I think the war would probably end if Putin was gone. Because it's really hard to explain that because really in reality, when I give short answers, it's because most of the time the real answer is a massive rabbit hole going all the way back in history. I'm pretty like if I was to answer every question with a rabbit hole, I would sound like Putin every single time I'm answering a question. It'd be like a 30-minute you know, pretty much synopsis on, you know, hundreds of years of history to explain why I would think one way would be a certain way. So without going through the massive rabbit hole, I think it would probably end once Putin died. To try and put out the short reasoning why, usually whenever a new leader takes over in Russia, they do a near complete reversal of what the last guy did. When Stalin died, Khrushchev came in and made a whole bunch of reforms that were considered quite liberal compared to what Stalin had been doing before. Then when Khrushchev was thrown out and Brezhnev took his place, Brezhnev was a lot more of a conservative leader than Khrushchev. Then when Khrushchev was outed, and then there was a whole bunch of premiers that kind of just up and died multiple times over, so it didn't really matter about them. Then Gorbachev came around, and then he became a lot more liberal with what he was doing. And then when Gorbachev got removed, Yeltsin became a lot more conservative with what he was doing. And then he became a little bit liberal. I mean, there was, like, Yeltsin was a little rough to explain, though, because he was kind of liberal and conservative depending on, like, the day. But, you know, how alcoholic he was that day, he was a little bit more liberal or conservative because of that. But then when Putin came around, he went hardcore down a very conservative path as far as, and I'm saying that not in a political light, actually. I'm saying that more so in the kind of freedoms that were given to the public in Russia and, like, Russia's stance in the world. It was a lot more lax or a lot more strict. And Putin is certainly one of the strictest leaders that Russia has had in the past 50 years, I would say. And so we're seeing that naturally, well, for those past 70 years, 80 years nearly, the next leader would probably be a lot more of a lax leader and probably move towards, you know, more, the best way to explain it would be liberalization in Russia. Probably more freedom of the press, freedom of expression, stuff like that, because that's what Gorbachev did. And then we probably also see that things would be reversed around the world, like the war in Ukraine, and there would probably be a thawing with Western relations, and then that would carry on until that leader was replaced and a new one came in, and then they pretty much reverse all of that. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least from what I know, without going into a massive rabbit hole on it. But thank you once again for the support in sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to the BK Knight 3, who puts in a 5 and says, do you think 300 Bodyguard might take a scroll?
Take a stroll.
Take a stroll,
boy. Take a stroll and learn. but nevertheless, yes, I think there's a slight chance if the army was involved. Yeah, a slight chance. But in all honesty, probably not. That's probably why he has so many bodyguards, and so that way all of them can't turn on him at the same time. But thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a $5 super chat from Tiago Andrade, who says, "Hi, enforcers again from Panama. And do you think that the phalanx gun would be the countermeasure against sea drones? And you guys are the best." And thank you, Tiago. He says, "Slav Ukraine."
And hello again to Panama. Really cool to hear that you are still here, Tiago. And I love to hear that we have Panamanian viewers. Really cool country. Also, to answer your question, also, did you just notice this, Matthew? This really threw me for a loop. There's 2 Santa Fe's in Panama. There's a Santa Fe here, right where the mouse cursor is, and then there's a Santa Fe over here.
That must be confusing.
That must be really confusing. I bet you they probably have like a zip code system in Panama. But that would be really confusing to have your friend say, "Hey, I'm going to Panama on vacation." Well, not Panama. "I'm going to Santa Fe on vacation. You want to go with me?" Yeah, and then they go to the Santa Fe in the east, and you go to the Santa Fe in the west. But moving on from that, that was just something weird I noticed when we zoomed in over here. And also, there's a Boca Chica.
Boca Chica, is
Boca
that right?
Chica.
Isn't that
Yeah.
where Jerry Seinfeld's father on Seinfeld lived?
I think that was Buena Vista.
Oh, that was Boca de Vista.
Oh yeah, Boca de Vista. Yeah, but Boca Chica is where the Starship rockets are being tested in Texas.
Yeah, in Texas.
Yeah, they help to rocket forward amazing and incredible breakthrough ideas like, why does NATO exist anymore? You know, stupid stuff like that. But beyond that, but beyond that,
Should we enter that realm of craziness? You know, we wouldn't ever presume to present ourselves to know how to build rockets or like hop on Twitter. Could you imagine us hopping on Twitter on our Enforcer account and tweeting out something like, SpaceX's rocket really doesn't have a reason to be so inefficient like that. It's really pathetic. Not knowing a damn thing about rockets, like we would be fools to do that. And for someone who doesn't know a thing about foreign policy to jump on there and put out such a bold opinion like, "I'm not even sure why NATO exists anymore, but I'm not even sure if it should exist." It's like, why would you get out of your lane like that and go subject yourself to criticism because you're going to be badly wrong? And he was. As he got into the whole history of NATO and why it was created, and he messed up the history of it as well, and got basically made a fool out of. It's almost like so bad. It sounds like he's doing it on purpose just to get attention.
I think that's what it really is. Because I don't even know why anyone would go down that route. I mean, the alliances around the world in any form, even like in an economic form or a military form, which are really the only 2 ways that they exist, they all have a reason. I mean, the CSTO for the Russians doesn't exist just for no reason. There would be absolutely no point. There would be no point to say that it's a pointless organization. This is a military alliance. Military alliances are supposed to strengthen like-minded countries all into one giant clump. And it's just a little weird, to say that an alliance doesn't have a point of existing. Every single one of them does. I even have to argue that BRICS has a point of existing, although I find its existence to be really stupid and it makes no sense. It still has a common reason for existing, which makes it a viable group. Like when even though they're a rival of ours, there is a point to its existence. Just like there is a very good point to the existence of NATO, especially considering that really all of our viewers live within the boundaries of NATO. We all have a vested interest in this alliance, and it's a good one at that. So it makes no sense to even say anything like that. But anyways, we were talking about Tiago Andrade's super chat. And Tiago Andrade said, "Do you think that the phalanx gun would be a good countermeasure against sea drones?" Yes, I think it would be. But the problem about the phalanx system, or the CIWS as it's called for the Navy, is that it actually doesn't have enough depression, meaning that the gun can tilt down far enough to be able to fire into the sea, unless there was a heavy roll for the ship, and the ship ended up rolling enough to the side that the phalanx could aim down at the target. So most of the time, a phalanx or a CIWS, or a close-in weapon system, probably would not be able to pull off the kind of shots that would make it useful, because it just can't aim down that low. And I think that requires, honestly, some people are like, that's not possible. And that's what I'm saying to you, Tiago. But I think there's a good solution to that. Simply modify the Arleigh Burke, well, any of our ships that we have right now that have a CIWS system on it, and modify it to where the gun can actually depress to be able to aim into the sea. I think that would be a easy, cheap, fix to the problem and help out massively with dealing with these drone situations that we're starting to see. And so with that, I hope that does address that quite well, and thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to the Gaming Murph, who puts in a 5 and says, I believe that smaller barrel is just a mock PKP, like the guys didn't have a PKP for that part of the testing, so it's a placeholder.
You know, actually, you're a genius. Because that's probably true. Because when you think about it, Matthew, that did not look like a machine gun at all, and they never loaded it when that gun was in the drone. So I think it was a placeholder. And I thank you so much for correcting us on that, the Gaming Murph, because that was a big goof. Now that I think about it, that was very clear to see, and we just were completely blind to that fact and did not see it. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you make it possible. And so thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jane Marie 3666, who puts in a 2 and says, today is my birthday and love you guys. And also, happy birthday to you, Jane Marie. I hope it's been a good one. And of course, LSA. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Jane Marie 3666, and happy birthday to you. I hope you're having a great one, and I hope that we've been able to help out with making it a good birthday too if you enjoy the channel, and I'm hoping you do. I really hope you do. And I thank you so much for saying that you love us, guys. We love you too, and we love everyone in the Lee Spring Army. And so thank you so much once again, and thank you for coming here for a happy birthday. And I hope that everyone in the chat wishes Jane a happy birthday. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a 4 from Dr. Doom 1313, as well as a 3 from Justin W, and a 4 from Junebug72. And they did not leave comments, but huge shout out to all 3 of you for helping to keep the channel running and supporting the entire operation, because we do appreciate it very much, and y'all are what keeps this entire thing going, and we do recognize it, and we do appreciate it. So with that is going to segue us right into our live chat questions of the night. And up first, we have our Morse code decoders of the stream. We have the Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Rumpelstiltskin, and David Millsaps. They said the Morse for tonight says, Russia tries and failed to. Long live the LSA.
That's the sound of money, and y'all got that down on the nail. That was the jackpot. That was the Morse code message. And I got to congratulate y'all for getting that possible and getting that dead on the nail. That is impressive to know that y'all have done that for 742 days. And here's to another 742 days if need be. And so congratulations to all y'all once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and moving into our first live chat question, we have one from AF Kaplan, who says, has there been an official statement from either NATO or the EU regarding the incident in Odessa?
There has not at the moment, from what I understand, which is really odd. We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier on. There really hasn't been any response from the West on this, which I myself find quite bizarre, considering that there was a prime minister at stake. His life was at stake. And also the president of Ukraine was at stake, but he's not a NATO member, so he's kind of inconsequential on an official level for the alliance. So, yeah, I'd have to say we haven't heard of one, and my comment on that would be is rather bizarre and very weird that we haven't. I guess you could say that NATO is on a bender.
A bender?
Yeah, a bender. That's it in Moldova.
Oh.
But with
bender. I'm interesting.
A bender, yes, a bender. Or if you don't like two chairs, you can always say Anini Noi. Like you can always just say that. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Damien Balou, who says, what do you think NATO's reaction would be if the Prime Minister of Greece had actually died in the attack on Odessa?
I would believe. Well, I mean, actually, that was a point of a big poll earlier on in the stream, way early on, actually. And a lot of people were under the idea, it was about 60%, so, you know, almost like 6 out of every 10, or 3 out of every 5, people were under the idea that there would probably be a very severe NATO response, maybe even an armed response to the death of the Greek prime minister. However, Matthew was one of the people who actually was not in that camp and actually said that maybe NATO would not respond, and they consider foreign leaders that go into Ukraine fair game, and whatever happens is more of a laissez-faire deal for everyone involved. If they die, they die. Not to quote the Ivan Draco from Rocky, but that's what Matthew was arguing a little bit earlier. So I think both Matthew and me actually still stand on that point. It's still kind of a bit of a split room on that. Matthew thinks nothing would really happen much at all, and that's fair. I mean, we don't really know. I think that there would be a severe NATO response, but it could be one or the other. It really just depends on what those NATO leaders find to be important, whether they consider his death to be something that must be responded to, or whether it truly is a laissez-faire thing, like Matthew was talking about, where they can die and it's just no big deal. But with that, I hope that does address that the best we can, at least with what we talked about a little bit earlier on in the show. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Terry Davis, who says, why wasn't the air defense more robust in the Odessa area when the attack occurred, since they knew those two guys would be there?
An incredible good question. I would assume that the air defense was probably as robust as can be, but there was still a way that missile made it through. Can't really explain it more than that because we don't have an exact after-action report or anything like that from the Ukrainian air defense talking about their failings or what air units were mobilized. We don't even know how many air defense units are actually around the city of Odessa, even on a normal day. So, going off of that, the best thing I could explain is that the air defense was probably, just going off of what I would feel is logical to say, was probably doing the best it can, and the Iskander ended up making it through the gap and ended up making it to its target. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Vyasta, who says, how do you think they knew where Zelensky was to build a strike so close by? Is there a spy up in his ranks?
That's a good question. There could be. There could entirely be a spy or some kind of what would be the best word to describe that?
A rat.
A rat. Yeah, a rat. There could be a rat, actually, within the ranks. It's not out of the question. There always is one. But at the moment, we can't say that for sure, but it's a high possibility, not out of the question at all. Also, by the way, we have to quickly address some person called Aze in the chat who asked earlier in the stream, have y'all ever been in the military? And we said no. And so the guy said, I'm signing you all up for the army. But the thing is about that is we can't get into the army. You see, to explain something really quickly, Jose, the interagency recruiting is highly frowned upon here in the U.S. government. And so, sadly, we can't go join the Army or the Air Force or really any other department because we already work for the CIA. I hate to say it. I know a lot of people would like to see us go into the military, but we're kind of serving our nation in another way. Very important way. I hate to say that, Ozzy, but I wish
we don't actually work for the CIA.
Yeah, we don't. Just to make that clear, we actually don't work for the CIA. But I wish you the best of luck in recruiting people, Ozzy, because you seem that you're very adamant on getting people into the armed forces, and best of luck to you. But with that, we need many great people in the armed forces. Maybe you could go in. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Eldad Sarek, who says, do you think Russia's intentionally trying to pull NATO into the conflict?
Yeah, no, I doubt it, because Russia really doesn't want NATO in the conflict. The reality of the matter is that the Russian government does understand that NATO would dominate in a ground war against the Russian Federation, beyond all of their weird notions. The reality is that they know that they would be beaten. We've even seen Putin admit that in the past years ago. So they probably want to avoid an actual conflict with NATO, but for some reason I would say it does look like we're inadvertently moving down that path, at least at the moment. I don't think anyone's really working towards it happening, but just multiple different events all being strung together through the course of this war going on are starting to lead to a path of war for both sides. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Avari Mendebratis, who says, to you, do you think Russia is funneling covert forces into Moldova disguised as civilians and relying on secret weapons cache and technicals?
Yes, I think the Russians certainly are funneling people into Moldova because if y'all remember, we did see attacks by unknown group way back in the day. You remember this, Matthew, when they hopped out of the car in front of a government building with a couple of AT weapons, fired them into the building, hopped back in the car, and then just sped out of the city?
I vaguely remember that.
I have a feeling that there is a decent amount of Russian agitation going on inside of Moldova. That's one thing that's for certain. But I don't know about the transfers of equipment. That's one thing that I'd highly doubt while I slam my watch into my desk. That was my watch hitting the desk. But I would have to say there is a certain amount of agitation, but I don't think there's a large amount of material build up by the Russians because they're not able to get anything in Moldova at the moment. They kind of have to work with all of the equipment that is in Moldova before the war broke out in Ukraine. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for asking a really good question. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Anonymous, who says, what needs to take place in order for the assassination to go off like this? Do they need eyes on the ground? And is it timing of ordnance?
I think it's a timing of ordnance and trying to get the location correct. Who is to say that Zelensky wasn't originally supposed to be where that missile landed? And then when the air defense alarm went off, they moved Zelensky a little bit farther away. That's something that's completely probable. We don't know because there's not a lot of details that came out about what Zelensky's bodyguards and his entourage did once the air attack was known and it was incoming. We don't know. So it could be about having someone on the ground, an informant or a rat, and then also trying to make sure the time the missile's landing to where Zelensky actually will be in real location. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Leonardo Willie, who says, when the guy fires the LSA shell, is that a two-stage trigger, or did he miss the first pull? And it seems almost like a two-stage. I'm always kind of curious about that.
He actually didn't miss the pull. He pulled a little weak. That's actually something that actually happens a lot in the artillery. It's not that the guy's like weak or anything, he needs to drink more milk or lift weights. It's not that at all. It's just that the primers for the artillery are very tough. I mean, they are really tough. You actually have to put your whole body into yanking that cord to be able to fire an artillery piece. So when he pulled it the first time, he didn't pull it with enough force to fire it, and that's why you saw him reset, and then you see him pull it with a lot more strength the second time. When we go to the outro here in a little bit, which I think is coming around here soon, watch that, because you'll see that the first pull is not as hard or harsh as the second pull he did. So that was really what it was. It's not a two-stage because a M777 is a one-stage. Really, I think all artillery is a one-stage. You just yank that thing one time and it goes. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least from what I know on how the M777 operates. And also, no discredit to the folks who fired that M777. They are, of course, an amazing artillery crew. Fired off the Lee Spring Army's artillery shell, and we have nothing but massive respect for them and a huge thanks and appreciation that they did this for this channel just because they watched it and enjoyed it. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to the old buzzard, who says, it seems like Russian planes, ships, and systems are being destroyed more frequently now than the rest of the war, and is the tide turning?
I have a feeling that the tide is certainly turning. The Ukrainians, well, the tide's turning in some ways, but then it's not really turning in others. As far as the frontline situation goes, the frontline situation is largely stable, with the Russians attempting to break through the Ukrainian lines and the Ukrainians holding the line. But as far as the overview of the war is going, in terms of strategic equipment being destroyed, the Ukrainians are certainly winning that side of the war and are able to inflict unbelievable casualties on things that the Russians cannot replace and are vital to them continuing on this war in the long term. So going off of that, I would say that the tide is shifting, not necessarily on the ground, but really for the overview of the war. I think it's still continuing to shift into Ukraine's favor as time goes by. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and good to hear your name again, Old Buzz. We heard you in the Super Chat segment and the live chat segment, double dipping. But with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Too Hip, who says, what has the Belarus leader, Uncle Luka, been doing lately? And we haven't heard very much from him as of late. Where's he at?
He's chilling. Best way not to sound like an idiot by saying that, but he's literally just chilling. He's not really doing anything. He's just kind of sitting around in Belarus. We don't know that he's even really left the country much, beyond the occasional visit to Putin in Moscow, or St. Petersburg. So going off of that, He's not really doing anything at all. There's not really a lot for me to even talk about because he does so little. Belarus is a nothing country. If any country in Europe was a nothing country, it really is Belarus, because they have a very small amount of economic activity. Their leader is very inactive. And on top of that, there isn't really a lot that just happens in Belarus in the first place to even be able to talk about them. So I hope that answers the question well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the chat?
And that viewer is Mike Zubrod, who says, what is Ukraine's contingency plan if Zelensky were to get assassinated? And I would hope it would not all fall apart. And if he were to be taken out, would NATO step in?
NATO might not step in, probably would not step in if Zelensky was killed. However, there is a line of succession in place in Ukraine where President Zelensky was killed. I forgot exactly who it was, but I think it's the head of the Verkhovna Rada steps forward and becomes the president of Ukraine. So I believe that's what would happen. I don't think everything would fall apart, but there certainly would be a massive leadership change if Zelensky was to die, and who knows what would come with that leadership change. But that's all I can really give you at the moment, is that if Zelensky did die, he would be replaced by the next in line, according to the line of succession laid out at the early part of this war, and that would be it. Beyond that, we would have no idea what would happen. I don't really even know a lot about who would really replace him, who would be the first in line to do that. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching. At the peak tonight, we reached 6,000 live viewers. And over the course of the stream, we got 34,000 views over the course of 3 hours. We are entirely appreciative and massively grateful that so many people continue to find this channel to be their top source of news in the war in Ukraine. If you are one of those people who found out that you enjoyed this channel tonight, make sure to subscribe and join the rest of the Lee Spring Army that continues to grow at an unbelievable pace day by day. Today alone, which actually, crazily enough, we would consider to be one of our smaller days of the week, we still ended up gaining nearly 300 subscribers over this day alone. And many people are continuing to join the Lee Spring Army and the Enforcer channel. And I hope that if you're new, that you join them as well. It's a great place. Not only do we cover this news in this form on live stream 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every day but Monday, we also put out short war summaries in the middle of the day that are around 10 to 12 minutes long and cover some of the major events of the day up to that point. Of course, I thank you all so much once again for watching. We are always so appreciative of every single one of y'all, both in the live chat, the silent viewers, and also the people who throw in super chats and hit the like button and everything in between. Every single one of y'all adds a special part to the Lee Spring Army and makes this channel so worthwhile to run, and not only that, possible to run as well. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks, and thank you all for yet another great stream. And also, thank you all as well for the 165,000 subscribers. We have yet another 1,000 subs under our belt, and it's all thanks to you, the LSA, for making it possible. So be sure to join us again tomorrow night. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava, and good night.
Yes.
The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.